So far in 2026, I've kept countless insanely interesting pets from all over the world. So I've taken my craziest videos and thrown them together in a massive movie compilation. Insane ant colonies, worms that spit slime, and so much more. So grab some pizza or something and prepare for the craziest animal movie of the year. Ants are known for their insane ability to work together to accomplish impossible tasks. So I was wondering what would happen if I put my 1,000 ant colony up against natural disasters. Would they actually be able to stop and survive them by working together? Well, that's exactly why I gathered up 1,000 ants. And I have the 5 coolest natural disasters planned, starting with the most iconic, an earthquake. Yup, ants, I went out and bought a realistic earthquake simulating platform that if I go and press this button, whatever on top starts to shake so much, which recreates a real earthquake. Oh, dang. But what I'll actually be putting on here is this 2D ant nest and filling it up with the 1,000 ants, of course. Basically, these ants will dig out tunnels along the glass like my last ant video, but throughout that process, the earthquake machine will lightly go off to gently collapse the tunnels while the ants are digging. That way, I can show you how ants evolve to survive earthquakes in the wild, and if they pass, they move on to the more and more interesting disasters. Now, as you could probably imagine, the ants wasted no time to get to work. Ants are so tiny, and while a single ant would basically be able to make no progress whatsoever, when you have a 1,000 ants, things are done at an insanely rapid pace as workers started picking up grains of sand along the glass so each tunnel could be formed. It's so cool to see time-lapse footage of these tunnels being made because they literally dug out this entire amount of sand in only like 6 hours. So I'm wondering what's gonna happen to these tunnels when I turn on this earthquake machine. Now, I started by turning it on the least powerful setting. Okay, it's shaking super slowly. Now, it's my goal to make sure not a single ant is harmed in this video. I just want to show you how insanely smart they are and how they will overcome all these disasters in the wild. But even this very light shaking was definitely felt amongst the colony. The workers along the top area immediately knew something was off and they started frantically running around, as you can see. And when we take a look down under the nest where all the tunnels are, you can see those ants were acting similarly. Ants know during earthquakes, their tunnels have the chance to collapse, so all of them were being extremely careful. Very interestingly enough, in this room here, many of the ants were gathering up on the walls of the room to add an extra layer of support so it wouldn't collapse. But of course, when an earthquake happens in the wild, a part of the nest is bound to collapse, so it wasn't long until this happened. A bit of the sand here started to fall, completely blocking off this tunnel. I immediately turned off the machine to make sure the ants wouldn't be too stressed out while they had to commence a rescue mission. Because as you can see, while most of the ants were able to squeeze out, like this guy here, at least one ant was partially trapped in this collapsed tunnel. But amazingly, it looked as though one of the ants was already picking up some of the sand from the collapsed portion to clear it out. And yeah, literally so quickly, the ants excavated the entire collapsed tunnel, enough to where it was a perfectly functional area to walk through again. And funnily enough, some of the ants even started to walk in and slowly dig out the area where the sand had just collapsed from to make a new tunnel there. Wow, the ants just completed this natural disaster. They are so smart. But the natural disasters are designed to get more interesting as the video goes on. So next up, we got a sandstorm. Yes, ants, you heard that right, and this will be taking place in the separate desert enclosure. Yes, we need to have a separate tank, so that way I can make this sand blow around like crazy to replicate a real sandstorm. And along with this blow dryer, I've also got all these fans that clamp to the walls, and I can just set up to constantly blow the ants back. For the ants to be able to pass this disaster, they're gonna have to do something like grab onto each other's bodies or something to be able to push past this intense wind. And if they can make it to this canyon, climb up it, and make it to the TerraGreen leaf bowl, then they're gonna get a ton of seeds, which is their favorite food. All right, let me just hook up this tubing like so, and the ants should start coming. Let's go. Yup, and this tubing is set up so once an ant enters the disaster, they can't get out. That way, we'll progressively get to see more and more teamwork as time goes on. Now, immediately, you could see these first ants just kind of thought this was a normal desert as they were walking through it, but quickly, I brought out my mini sandstorm fan, and I started to blow. Immediately, the ants started to feel the wind pressure pushing them back, and were suddenly not able to walk forward. Some even lost their grip and got pushed back a bit. And as more ants entered the desert, you could tell the sandstorm was keeping them all stuck to the left side of this enclosure. Yo, this little mini fan is fire for replicating a sandstorm. But no, this is where it gets interesting because now that they know a sandstorm is brewing, how are they gonna figure out how to get to these seeds? Well, let's see. While most ants kept trying to just walk forward and getting blown back, interestingly enough, many of the ants were gathering up in this back area here near the sticks. And many of them were actually starting to climb onto the sticks. You see, the fan doesn't doesn't really blow ants back if they're walking on sticks, since there's just so much of a better grip on there. But yeah, the second they climb off and stand on the sand again, they'll get blown back, as you can see. But the ants were starting to learn that they needed to stay on the sticks. So many started to gather up and march towards the right side where all the seeds were located. In fact, this ant was making it dangerously close to the seeds using the stick method. And well, he was able to make it to the little rock canyon and almost was there to the seeds. Oh my gosh, this ant climbing right now is a beast. I am blowing this fan max speed on him and he is just stuck to this rock. And as I let my guard down for literally 1 second, this dude made a dash for the seeds, literally running straight towards it, and well, he made it in. And he looked so happy to have gotten those seeds. He was just dancing around in there. Yo, this ant is crazy. I didn't even have time to blow him back when he got up into this area. Since the ants passed a disaster, I gathered them all up and put them back into the nest. And I gave them the food prize, which of course they started to take down into the nest over the next 5 minutes. But ants, I'm not gonna lie, this natural disaster was kind of easy to pass. If we really want to learn about how ants survive, well, we gotta go to our third natural disaster, a flood. Yup, and as you can see, I've built another custom tank where the flood is going to be getting simulated. I know there's no water yet, but you'll see how quickly that changes. For now, all you gotta know is if the ants make it all the way to this leaf ball, they'll once again get rewarded with tons more seeds. These ants have no idea what's about to hit them. Let's connect this tubing so these guys can start walking in. Quickly, the ants started to make their way in. But before the ants had any time at all to take in their surroundings, I had to activate the flood. So to make the flood happen, I gotta go down here to this little bucket, plug it in, and then out the end of this tube. Oh yeah, water. Oh shoot, water's coming out. Okay, I just gotta carefully, move that over there. Oh, okay. There we go. Similar to real life, floods will block off paths for ants while they're trying to travel, so this is exactly what that recreates. And the ants are gonna have to find a way to pass these gaps using the objects I've provided for them. As you can tell, the ants in here immediately were a little confused on what to do. Many were gathering up near the water edge, inspecting what the heck just happened. Some even fell into the water, but don't worry, any ant that falls in, I'll be rescuing and bringing back to the start so no ants get hurt. But also, many of the ants were actually sort of gathering around the objects I had placed in. And as I left my camera recording, I was extremely amazed by what I saw happen. Out of nowhere, this feather started to slightly move, and as I kept watching, it slowly started nudging around more and more. There must have been an ant underneath, and this ant was genuinely moving the feather closer and closer to the water until literally like magic, it was moved almost entirely in, and an ant crawled out right from underneath as soon as that happened. Dang, this guy must have been helping move it. Yo, these ants are absolutely insane. I don't know what ant just moved this feather into the water, but dang, I mean, let's just see what they do. It took a couple minutes, but eventually a couple more of the workers started to step onto the feather and started to walk across it to, of course, make it to our second platform. Now, unfortunately, the ants got to do the same exact thing here. Sorry, guys, I know you already did it once, but to my surprise, the ants literally wasted no time to start gathering around these feathers and directly in the area under them. And while it took a couple hours, eventually my camera caught this same exact thing happening. The feather slowly inched towards the water until, well, it had made a bridge across almost. Let's go, ants. Now, I did help them a little bit by just moving the feather up onto this platform, but for the most part, they actually were moving those. And yep, it didn't take long till our first worker stepped onto the final platform and climbed up into the leaf dish to claim their seeds. All right, well done, little ant, and here is your guys' reward. Well, guys, if you want even better food, you're gonna have to complete this next natural disaster, which is a blizzard. And guys, this is gonna be happening in your nest. Be prepared. Yup, this blizzard will be taking place inside of the ant nest, so we could study how ants handle the cold in the wild. Now, obviously, I can't just go and dump a ton of snow on them. That would totally just freeze them all. Instead, I've actually got some ice cubes, which I'm gonna go and just plop on this which, as you can see, this makes a nice little makeshift snow that on my laser thermometer is approximately -Celsius degrees. I started by sprinkling a super tiny amount of this ice on the ant nest to see how they'd initially react, and interestingly, well, not even a single ant cared at all. Yeah, this ice just melted completely into the sand. Since the ants weren't affected by that, I decided to up the amount of ice I put in, which should give us a reaction to how ants handle the cold in the wild. And this time, the ants were actually a bit more interested in the ice, with some of them even crawling on top of them. But the most fascinating thing I had noticed was how much the ants had started to slow down their movement since the start. Thankfully, all the ants are doing just fine still, but if you look very closely, these ants for the most part have slowed down so much. I mean, look at how slowly some of them are moving. Yup, this is one of ants' special abilities, because in the winter, when it starts to snow and the temperature drops drastically, the ants are basically biologically built to start moving slower. That way, they can conserve as much energy as possible and go hide deeper underground. So yeah, in the wild, they would dig even deeper and all the ants would relocate to under the nest. I don't want to put any ants at risk, so I'm going to very carefully take out all the pieces of ice so this place will warm back up to the proper temperature. And once the tank was warmed back up, I'd say the ants are now ready for their final natural disaster, which this time is a zombie apocalypse. And I'm not gonna lie, this is probably gonna be the most interesting to watch because I've got 3 different types of insects that, in a way, is going to represent a zombie apocalypse. Now, our first insect prey is, well, zombie grasshoppers. Yes, these are grasshoppers that Petco sells that are literally like half decomposing and meant for feeding animals. And I'll be bringing them back to life and moving it in front of the ants to see what they do. And to make the ants swarm this even more, I'm gonna dip some of it in this brown sugar water. And yeah, this is gonna make it super tasty. Without further ado, let's get this in here. Now, immediately after dipping this in the nest, I started to do a really good, accurate job of moving this around to act like it was alive. And I think the ants were falling for it because you can see they quickly started to climb all over it. And if you also look closely, the ants were actually grabbing onto this thing with their insanely strong mandibles, and they were injecting their venomous stingers into it. Which is kind of unnecessary. This thing is already long gone, but I guess I'm just doing such a good job moving it around that they think it's actually a real zombie grasshopper. Okay, you guys are doing a good job attacking this. I'm just gonna leave that in there for you while I get this second insect ready. And yeah, they start to absolutely devour this grasshopper. But anyways, our second insect food is this. They're called wax worms, and they're a staple food for ants because of how squishy they are. But yeah, they just look so weird. So that's why I'm putting them in the zombie apocalypse section of the video. Let's go ahead and add these guys in. I decided to put this first wax worm on top of where all the ants were still located around that grasshopper. And well, the ants almost instantly recognized the prey, and amazingly, they knew exactly what to do. And they took this dude straight down into the tunnel system where it wouldn't even stand a chance to fight back. Oh my gosh, that was like 3 seconds. And now this worm is literally nowhere to be seen. It's probably in the tunnel system. Dang, that's actually kind of impressive, ants. So I dropped the other 2 wax worms inside, and once again, one of them instantly got pulled down into the tunnel system to get eaten, and this one started to get swarmed. After the ants had a good grasp of it, they literally brought it over to these hills in the back, which eventually the worm was then brought down one of the holes on that hill. It's so cool, because if you guys didn't even realize, the ants have turned these hills at the back into an extra place for more tunnels on the back, and we can literally see the worm down under these tunnels as the ants get their protein from eating it. Wow, amazing job, ants. But our final zombie apocalypse food is flightless fruit flies. But I'm gonna be dumping so many on the ants, so it's like a proper zombie apocalypse movie with how many zombies there are, even though, yeah, these aren't zombies. Yeah, these are flightless fruit flies, and if you didn't already know what they are, well, they're flies that can't fly. It's always so funny to me to say this in videos, because seriously, like, how are you a fly that can't fly? Come on, bro. Okay, anyways, I got about 100 of these flies, as you can see. So, let's dump this zombie apocalypse on these ants. Oh yeah. Now, as you can probably imagine, dumping this much prey on the ants activates their predator instincts a lot. Because instantly, so many of the ants started to become way more frantic. They started to run around like crazy to try and catch these little flies. Now, I mean, it's pretty obvious the ants aren't gonna struggle with eating these flies because they're literally so much smaller. And quickly, I started to notice lots of the ants with these little flies in their mandibles. Yeah, I bet these are tasty. But guys, there's still way more. And as the video goes on, the pets get more and more unique. And I mean it, because next up, I hatched a pet that I would not recommend to any of you guys. You gotta see this. This is 1,000 mosquito eggs, and in just a couple days, they're going to hatch into 1,000 actual flying mosquitoes that I'm going to be doing the most interesting experiments with, like feeding them a pool of blood. Anyways, right now, the mosquito eggs we have are dormant, but all they need to hatch is a bit of water. The second a dry mosquito egg touches water, the embryos inside absorb it and basically come to life. And literally within only a few minutes of adding in the the water, check out this area right here. A tiny little white speck started to poke out from the top of this single egg. Everyone, this is a mosquito larva, also known as a wiggler. And yeah, you can probably tell why they're called wigglers based on how much they wiggle, but over the next few days, this will eat food and literally evolve into a fully grown mosquito. It will actually be one of the craziest things you'll ever see. Oh, but yeah, I almost forgot. We don't just have one, we have 1,000 mosquitoes that we're gonna be raising. And only a minute later, another wiggler started to wiggle out, then another, and soon enough, this tank was starting to get overrun with our new pets. I have to be so careful in this video. Oh my gosh, this is so weird. Literally 1,000 mosquito larvae are right here. But if we want them to turn into real mosquitoes, there's a couple things we gotta do to speed up their growth process. Of course, starting with feeding them. And I don't even know what these things eat. I mean, they're practically microscopic at this stage. Yeah. I mean, I guess let me just search what do mosquito larvae eat. Enter. And it looks like they eat microscopic organic matter. Oh, I actually have an idea of how I could do this. This is fish food. Yeah, not super special, but for when the larvae are this small, it works perfectly to crush up into tiny little pieces. And immediately after dropping in some of this crushed food, it sank down to the bottom for the larvae to start eating. Since the larvae were just born about an hour ago, they're still so unbelievably small that it's just so hard to see, but you can kind of make out the shape of its mouth if you look very closely right here. It's insane how there's a brain and actual life in something this tiny. Anyways, you can see they tried to eat most of this food, but it's still a bit big. So once it dissolves into the water, it'll become even easier for these guys to eat it. But things get fun quickly because these wigglers more than double in size every 24 hours. So I have a feeling if we come back tomorrow, these guys are going to be a lot bigger. Good morning, TerraGreeners. I just woke up. The mosquitoes are probably bigger now. I haven't really checked though. Let me look. Wait, I haven't even zoomed in yet. And wait, you can literally see. Oh my gosh. Yeah, if you can't tell by this footage, the larvae are so much bigger now. And when I turned on my camera to record them in detail, I was amazed by how much they grew literally overnight. The day before, this was the most zoomed in footage I could get of these guys. But now the larvae almost filled up the entire frame, and look at how much more detailed they are. This black bulb at the bottom is their heads, and they're so big already, we can make out their mouth a lot easier, and we can even see their tiny little eyes. These guys are so cool because you can literally see how their mouth works as a little boat motor essentially, and they can just use it to slowly drift among the water surface. Sometimes they'll even curl up and start sucking up microscopic food particles from the surface. Okay, well this video is all about doing the funnest experiments with the mosquitoes, so next up, I want to test their light instincts. Because if you didn't know, adult flying mosquitoes are insanely attracted to light. I mean, they'll just swarm light at night. But I was wondering if that instinct starts when they are babies. Well, to figure it out, I turned off all the lights in my garage and watched what they did. Pretty quickly, the larvae actually started to rise to the surface way more. If you remember, most of the larvae were spending most of their time together, sort of near the bottom of the tanks when the lights were on. But yeah, with the lights off, they all like to be on the surface apparently. Okay, that's pretty interesting. But now what I want to do is take this super bright studio light and position it pointing right at the side of the enclosure. So that way we can turn it on. There we go. And we can see what they do. Yeah, let's see. And literally the second after turning on this light, like magic, the larvae started to migrate away from it. And they all started to gather up on the right side as far away from the light as possible. Wait, so these guys are moving away from the light. Huh, that's interesting. The fully grown mosquitoes, they'll completely swarm light. But when they're larvae, they will completely avoid it. So to confirm my theory, I turned off this light and moved it over to the right side. And immediately the larvae did exactly what I thought they would, and they went back to the left side. Since I could kind of control where they were, I thought it'd be funny to kind of just swap the lights on and off on each side and, you know, make them do some exercise. Listen, okay, I gotta train some strong, capable mosquitoes for when I put them up against a pile of blood. It's gonna be so interesting. Dang, that is actually so cool to watch how they do that. And apparently they do this because they don't want to get eaten by fish, of course, and if they're in the darkness, then it's obviously harder for the fishes to see them. But actually, very interestingly, while I was doing that last test, if I go and stir the floor around like that and zoom in, you can see there's tons of what almost looks like just dead mosquito larvae that is just drifting around in the water. Now, I got worried for a second. I thought something was going around killing all the mosquitoes, but don't worry. I actually figured out that these are not dead mosquito larvae. You see, what these are actually the old skin of our current larvae. You see, these guys apparently shed off their old skin 4 times before becoming a flying mosquito. Basically, just like how other animals will molt their skin off when it's time to grow bigger. So of course, now that I know that, for the next experiment, I gotta see if I can capture on camera a shot of them molting. Basically, what I'm gonna do is go and move my lights back to the, the back of the enclosure. And basically, that's gonna cause all the larvae to go and swim to the front. And then I can just leave my camera running for like 24 hours, and surely I could capture at least one of these guys molting to get that shot for you guys. And so yeah, I recorded this for like 2 hours, and after thoroughly reviewing all of the footage, none of the larvae actually shed their skin, unfortunately. But obviously, I was not gonna give up. So I spent hours actively recording with my camera, watching every single larvae at the water surface. Apparently, they only molt out their skin when they're hanging upside down from the top, and after about 2 hours, I found this larva. You can tell he was about to molt by the fact that he was hanging upside down for a pretty long time without moving, and every now and then, he would try and twitch to squeeze out of his old skin. If you look very closely right here, you can see his old skin starting to slide up and off, and this white part right here is his new skin underneath. But after watching this guy for like another hour, all of a sudden, he just started to float down, and he fell all the way to the floor and completely stopped moving. Yeah, apparently the molting process is actually really grueling for mosquitoes, and there's a chance that they can use all their energy while doing it and die, which I guess just happened to this guy. Rest in peace, bro. But of course, this was not gonna stop me, because I kept recording for longer and longer until I eventually caught this footage. Keep in mind, this is literally the first footage on the internet of a mosquito larvae molting because of how hard it is to catch, so you can't complain about how trash this footage quality is. But anyways, you can see it started to shake violently, and it started to slide out of its old skin. This dark part is his new skin, and eventually he was able to fully slide out, and only his molt was left behind. It's so cool to watch this happen, and after it does, the new larvae swims away and leaves the old skin behind, which that skin will probably get eaten by another larvae very soon for some protein. Let's go. I'm so happy we just got to see that. But in fact, I just spent so long trying to get that shot that almost all of our larvae now are pretty much fully grown, meaning yes, we're about to have 1,000 mosquitoes hatching in just a matter of days. And about that, it would be extremely illegal and just really bad if a mosquito escaped, let alone 1,000 mosquitoes. So I have a feeling it's time we build some sort of containment system. Oh man. Now thankfully, I had this big tank sitting in my garage, which would actually be a perfect fit to put over our current tank. So when the mosquitoes hatch, they won't be able to just fly away. But obviously, there's a big opening on the bottom, which would be bad if we had to move this. All the mosquitoes would get out. So what I did was put our current tank in here while the big one was sideways. And then I got this piece of clear acrylic that I'm gonna be able to attach to the front. And when I attach this piece of acrylic, it's gonna make sure no mosquitoes can get out. But you're probably wondering why I got all these massive holes right here. Well, what I'm gonna do is this. And as you can see, I just put mesh in each of the corners so, air can get in. But I left this hole open in the middle so I can put a little door here so we'll be able to put stuff in, but mosquitoes won't be able to get out. It's pretty simple to make though, because all we gotta do is attach this little sleeve contraption I made and put a clamp on the end. Basically how it works is if you want to put your arm inside, you go ahead and take off the safety clamp like that. And basically what you do is while you're holding it still, you gotta carefully stretch your arm inside, and then boom, when it's around your arm, it's very airtight and you can go ahead and put your arm inside. And you see I have access to here, and the mosquitoes won't be able to get out, and it's very easy to go and take my arm out, keep it shut, and then I can go and put the clamp back on. And after I had my dad silicone the acrylic on, boom, this containment system is done. But guys, there's actually something I didn't tell you about these mosquitoes. In their life cycles, there's a whole nother stage of life before becoming mosquitoes that lasts about a day. And when I came back the next day to my tank, I noticed they were already entering it. Oh my gosh, guys, look at what I just saw. Take a look at the larvae in here. You see these little circular things swimming around next to the actual larvae? Those are the pupae, and that means they're about to hatch. You see, these pupae are also called tumblers because, well, they tumble down when they sense potential danger nearby. But the coolest thing is how these guys look. They got these weird, scary looking eyes. They got little horns that act as snorkels for oxygen. And of course, they look way different from a larva with that cool shrimp-shaped body. And if you're wondering how it looks when a larva turns into a pupae, well, this awesome footage from Backyard Bugs shows it. Basically, the skin splits at the thorax area, and very similarly to how the larvae molt, the new pupae will slide out, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yes, sir, these guys are so cool, but we haven't even got to see the coolest part where they literally crawl out the pupae, and it's like an alien movie. It's crazy. But yeah, I don't think that shot's gonna be too hard to get because we're on like day 8, and check what has just started to hatch. Yep, that is a mosquito, meaning there's like 3 mosquitoes in here right now, so it shouldn't be long till we have much more. You see, the pupae get darker and darker as they get closer to turning into a mosquito. So since this pupae is bright white, I know he won't be hatching anytime soon, but these pupae here are extremely dark, meaning the mosquito is right under that skin, ready to crawl out. So to make the shot even easier to get, I'm gonna suck all the darkest pupae up into this little pipette and put them in this container to make it easier to record. Now, since the mosquitoes have already started to hatch, I actually had to use the door I made to get my hand inside so they wouldn't escape, and I used my little pipette to start sucking up as many of the dark pupae as I could. Then I put them into a temporary container and I started to film. Thankfully, the pupae hatched within only a few hours of turning black, so it was literally only about an hour of recording till I caught this on camera. Out of nowhere, this pupa here started to straighten out its tail. This makes a little tunnel here for the head of the mosquito to start squeezing out. It's so nasty, but you can see how this area here just keeps inflating. The mosquito is literally being born in front of our eyes, and you can see how it's leaving the clear pupa skin behind. All of a sudden, his little mouth pops out here that they use to suck blood, and soon after, you can see his wings popped out as well. Oh my gosh, guys, this is insane. Wait, this is happening right now. Finally, the legs stop sticking to the body, and bada bing, bada boom, that's how a mosquito is born. They'll basically stand here for like half an hour while they wait for their body and wings to harden up. And unfortunately, I am not allowed to just let this guy fly out. Yeah, when you hatch mosquitoes in your house, it is just illegal to let them escape. So I'm gonna try and move them into this tank, but if I can't do it, I do have this here. But thankfully, I didn't have to use that since it was super easy to just grab it with tweezers and let it loose in the containment system. W mosquitoes, bro. That was one of the coolest things I have seen. Well, guys, it's been another few days, and I'm proud to say we have 100+ mosquitoes now. I mean, we got tons just flying around. We got even more just sitting all over the glass. And that's not even to mention all the mosquitoes just hiding around. Now, I can test these guys with my last 2 mosquito experiments, starting with sticking my hand inside of the tank of mosquitoes. But in addition to my hand going in there, I've also got a couple kinds of mosquito repellent, so we can test if these things actually work. I am definitely about to get bit. So I started to apply the first mosquito repellent to my arm by spraying it. You see, mosquitoes are insanely attracted to the scent and heat of human skin, but somehow the spray stuff completely blocks all of those and messes with the mosquito senses. Theoretically, when I stick my hand in there, I shouldn't get bit. Well, I guess let's just do this. And as I stuck my hand in, I got very nervous. I hate mosquito bites. They're flying very close, but yeah, I don't think they can even sense that this is a hand right now. Yeah, I literally left my hand in there another 30 seconds, and not a single mosquito even landed on it. When normally, they would definitely be swarming it. Dang, this stuff works good. If you need some mosquito repellent, I recommend this brand. It's not sponsored or anything, but it's pretty good. But now the second mosquito repellent I want to test, well, you see this app right here? This app claims to literally make a sound that will repel mosquitoes. Oh, do you hear that? It's like a high-pitched buzz. Okay, well, let's see if this works. Now, I've heard these apps are myths, but as I put my hand inside, the mosquitoes weren't instantly swarming it. In fact, they were acting kind of similar to earlier when I was testing the spray stuff, even though I had thoroughly washed it all off my hand. Maybe these apps actually do work. That was until I found this when I took my hand out. Okay, for a second, I thought this app actually worked. Well, let me turn off this ear-piercing sound. But then I realized I actually got bit like right there. Yeah, I can definitely feel it. It's starting to itch and stuff. Don't use these apps, guys. I can assure you they are fake, but I guess this stuff kind of does work. Anyways, now it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for. Mosquitoes versus blood. And yes, I actually have a jar of blood from a cow. Oh my gosh. Now, in order to make this have a chance to work, I had to fill up this little container with a bunch of blood, and then I put some saran wrap on top. This way, the mosquitoes could stick their little mouthpiece through it and get filled up with blood if they're hungry. Finally, I just warmed it up in the microwave so it would recreate the temperature that mosquitoes like, and I put it inside the tank. Let's see what these mosquitoes do. Now, for the first like 20 minutes, pretty much none of the 100 mosquitoes were interested. They were kind of just hiding around and not moving much, so I kept trying tons of new stuff, like dimming the lights, because apparently mosquitoes don't like to eat under the bright light, and after trying so much stuff and recording for hours, not a singular mosquito tried to eat this blood. And this cool footage, you can see mosquitoes literally only take a couple seconds to land on an arm and get completely filled up with blood. But for some reason, they only like to drink blood from arms and not just liquid blood, apparently, like we have here. Literally all the mosquitoes had gathered up on the other side of the enclosure to avoid it. Yeah, I literally just tried to record this for 2 days. None of the mosquitoes were interested. I didn't want to have to not upload the video just because the last experiment failed. The whole point of the channel is to get crazy animal ideas and see if they're actually possible. Unfortunately, this one wasn't, but all the other experiments were, and we got to learn all about the mosquito life cycle, which was just so interesting to watch, so I had to upload this. Yeah, I'm very lucky those guys didn't escape in that video. But next up is easily one of my favorite and weirdest pets I've ever kept. Check this out. This is an alien worm. It is an extremely rare worm species that has the insane ability to shoot slime out of its mouth to glue its prey to the ground. Usually, you would never be able to find one of these, but I just found this website that somehow had 10 of them in stock. Oh my gosh, I have never seen one of these in stock on a website before. How did this site randomly get 10? Who knows, but I think I'm gonna buy all 10 and then I can be one of the first people in the world to show off the insane abilities of these alien worms. So I checked these bad boys out, and in a matter of days, I had received the so-called alien worms. Yo, please tell me I did not get scammed with these things. But I took out the packing material, and thankfully, these rare creatures were actually here. Oh, it's the alien worms. Yo, I gotta get a closer look at these guys. So I took the lids off of the containers that they were packed in and carefully moved one over to a damp paper towel. Instantly, we can see why people call them alien worms. They quite literally look like a mutant abomination between a centipede and an earthworm, and their skin is lined with thousands of these tiny weird bumps. But of course, the weirdest part of these worms was revealed when I tried to move it with my tweezers. Almost instantly, it turned around and spat its alien slime all over them. Yup, out of these two front arms, the alien worm is able to straight up cover my tweezers in this sticky glue substance that they actually mainly use to glue prey to the ground so they can easily go up to them to eat them whole. It's something straight out of an alien movie. And of course, I don't just have one of these worms, I have 10 of them. This is gonna be so fun. To get started, we need to recreate the alien worm's natural environment in this tank, which surprisingly is not actually some alien planet. These creatures actually live in the Central American rainforests. So I'm gonna be using some spray foam to make the background of this tank first. It's been a while since I've used it, but spray foam is the ultimate cheat code for rainforest tanks. Of course, because of the amazing ability to be able to stick stuff like dirt, sticks, and tons of other natural stuff to it to make it look, you know, natural. And once this background is looking pretty good, step 2 to making this tank is to do the floor, which is surprisingly important for alien worms to get right. But thankfully, that's not too hard to do, because basically all we gotta do is just take some of these clay balls and pour it in like that. Then once that's filled up, we gotta get out some window screen. If you're a terrarium expert, you'll probably know I'm making a drainage layer right now. By cutting out this window screen and putting it above the clay balls, it lets water drain down into it, but it will still let us put our dirt right on top. Now, you may have noticed that whenever I've had one of these alien worms out, they've been on a nice damp paper towel. That's because this species needs constant moisture, or else they'll simply dry out and just die. So that means for this tank, we're gonna wanna add a ton of this nice purified water down into the drainage layer so it'll just stay nice and moist. But I'm not just gonna pour water in the tank, that would be boring. Here on the TerraGreen channel, I gotta make things interesting. That's why I've got a Spider-Man water shooter to add the water. Yes, sir, this thing shoots streams of water just like Spider-Man's web shooter shoots webs. And yeah, this might be kind of stupid, but it actually makes sense to do this because if you think about it, Spider-Man sticks his enemies to walls with webs, and well, the alien worms, they shoot goo onto their prey, so yeah, this definitely makes sense to do. Okay, and I think it's out of water. Okay, I'm just gonna pour the water in normally. So yeah, after adding in the water, you can see this drainage layer now had a nice healthy amount of water in it. This moisture will help keep the dirt above nice and wet. And speaking of that dirt, it's now time to add that in. Lots of people sometimes like to make their complex mixes of tons of different types of dirts and mosses, but today I'll just be using this nice old bag of jungle dirt mix. This already has a good ratio of all the different types of natural stuff that makes up the dirt in the jungle where the alien worms actually live. There we go. Look at this place. It's actually looking pretty dirty. Yeah, you see what what I did there. 30, because there's dirt everywhere. Anyways, in my hand, I have a ton of insects. Don't ask me how I got these. But you see, I have something I want to do with these. Basically, I'm going to dig a little hole here along the side of the glass, and then I'm going to bury all of these insects right there, basically. You see, obviously, the alien worms eat insects, so I thought by burying these down here, there could be the slight chance that our alien worms would pick up on the scent and dig down to find them. To be honest, I don't even know if alien worms can dig, but hey, I guess someone has to find out somehow. Anyways, this is where the build starts to get fun, because now it's time to do the decorations. Yep, the first decoration I want to make is a cave made out of rocks. But it's actually cool how you make it. Let me show you. Yeah, you may just think that we could just stack a bunch of rocks on each other and call it a cave, but in reality, there's a lot more that goes into it. What I actually had to do is buy these wooden skewer things and essentially start poking them into the background to make these little platforms for me to place rocks on top of. This essentially lets me create an arch shape out of all the rocks here that the alien worms will be able to walk under. Then we basically glue all these together with some more spray foam. Yep, since it's black, it blends in pretty well. And once I covered most of the excess spray foam with some more rocks and dirt, boom, the cave is done. All right, but this place is still looking pretty barren, so I figured it was time to finally start adding some color around with this nice moss. Not only is it super beautiful, but if we leave it alone for enough time, it'll completely grow over the whole tank in a bunch of greenery. Okay, for the next decoration, you guys might think it's stupid, but I think it's genius. It's this stuff. And if you don't know what this is, it is modeling clay. But trust me, I have a good purpose for it. Because if you take a look at it, you'll notice how it's super stringy and almost slimy looking when I pull it apart. Almost very similar to how the alien worm slime that they shoot looks like. So I thought it'd be pretty fitting to start just stretching this around parts of the background and other parts of the tank to basically make it look like there was a bunch of old dried up slime that these alien worms had shot around the tank. And of course, right now this stuff is still soft and could be bent in any way, but in a few hours the air will harden it up and make it non-toxic for our worms. Some people might say this just like made it look uglier, and I would kind of honestly have to agree, but also it just kind of adds character, so I think I'm gonna keep it. All right, then I just quickly added in some plants because, you know, nature has plants, so I figured this would just help the place look more natural. And finally, yeah, I just had one more decoration. Yes, sir, I got an alien statue to put inside. We'll put that right there. Yeah, I mean, we literally have one of the most alien creatures that exists on all of Earth, so it only makes sense to have this in here, so I'll always know what's in the tank. Now, before adding in our alien worms, there's one final thing we got to do, and that's to add life inside of here. And as you can see, I've got 3 different life forms here of different animals I'm gonna add inside. Let me get them inside. The first life form I'll be adding is very simple, but very effective. It's springtails. You almost certainly know them if you've seen my channel before, but in fact, right here, I bought over 3,000 of these little guys that I'm going to release into the tank. Since we're gonna be keeping it so unbelievably moist, mold might start growing in the tank, but springtails eat mold, so it solves that problem. But I don't only have these boring bluish colored springtails, I also decided to buy a batch of exotic yellow springtails, which costed a lot more, but they looked a bit cooler, so it was definitely worth it in my eyes. Okay, but this next life form is going to blow your mind. Check out what is inside this box. Right in here, I've spent over $50 on a couple tiny little isopods. Isopods are a little type of bug that basically just keep your tanks clean, but I didn't buy just any regular old isopod. Say hello to the rubber ducky isopod. Yes, sir, these things cost like 100 times more than a regular one, because if you just look at the front of its body, it literally is yellow and has an orange beak just like a rubber ducky. So yeah, people thought this was cool and decided to just sell them for an absolute insane price. And honestly, I think they're worth it because they're super cute, and the fact that they keep our tank clean, I mean, that's just sick. Well, hopefully you guys enjoy your time in the tank. And hopefully the alien worms don't decide to eat you guys. That would kind of be sad. And now for our third and final life form. This one is extremely creepy because you see, recently my friend Flytrap Films uploaded a video about a weird alien mold that he discovered. In this video, he literally showed off how this mold is able to move on its own and literally eat decaying insects. And for some reason, he decided to send his alien mold to me. And hey, we're keeping alien worms, so I figured we may as well try and keep this weird alien mold stuff too, to see if it interacts with the worms in any weird way. So I went ahead and opened the package Flytrap Films had sent me, and inside I was kind of confused by what I saw. He had packed a dish dish full of these tiny pieces of paper with little yellow specks on them. Now, I'm pretty sure these yellow specks are the slime molds. And because they grow at a rapid pace, it shouldn't be very long until ours come alive. So, I'm pretty sure to make this alien mold come alive, we literally just plop the specks of it on this little dish. Just like that, and then we put this oat right on the other side, so they'll have something to eat. Alright, let's see if these start moving. So yeah, I just left my camera recording, and it only took about 30 minutes until one decided to wake up. Out of nowhere, this one at the bottom left started to pulsate its yellow body like crazy, and then it slowly started to grow off of the edge of the piece of paper it was on, and it started to walk towards the oat I had put inside. Yup, I have no clue how a literal mold is able to walk, let alone find food sources to swarm and eat, but after the mold got to eat a bit of this oat, it got enough energy to grow upwards towards the middle mold to merge with that and grow even stronger. Oh my gosh, I just woke up, guys, and look at this alien mold, what it's doing right now. Not only has it moved so much, but it's going to the other alien molds to like eat them. Nah. The alien slime mold kept merging around with more of the molds and eating more oats. And as I kept watching, unfortunately the dish kept getting all condensated and stuff, and basically blocked my view from getting all the interesting shots. But thankfully, we could still see some of the growth on the sides of the condensation, and you can see how active it was under there. Oh my gosh, guys, look at this alien mold. It is so crazy how much it is able to just completely devour these oats. And yeah, considering this thing started as a little tiny piece of mold and eventually got this big, it tells me that if it escapes into this tank, it might grow large enough to cover the entire thing. So, of course, I'll be going ahead and putting this alien mold in the cave like that, so it can continue growing. And of course, at the end of the video, I'll be seeing if the alien worms interact with it in any sort of weird way. Anyways, this tank is now completely finished and ready for our alien worms, so we can learn all about them. All right, let's get these alien worms in. Now, if you remember, I was moving them with tweezers earlier, but that was causing them to spit their slime at me, which I don't want them to have to do in defense since it probably stresses them out. So instead, I'm gonna try and gather them up with this spoon so the squeezing doesn't spook them. So I went ahead and gathered them all up and scooped them all into their brand new enclosure. It's pretty cute watching them all be bunched up into a ball like this together. Apparently, a group of these alien worms is called a cuddle, which I think is pretty fitting. But as you can see, it didn't take very long for a few of them to start venturing off on their own to explore. Out of all the worms I had gotten, most of them were pretty decently sized, like this one. But as you can see, a few of them, like these two, were still super small babies. Which I'm not gonna lie, these guys are super cute, and I wonder which kind of prey they even eat, and if they can shoot slime too. But yeah, I just think it's kind of stupid how each of these alien worms costed me $150. Even the babies, even though they're so much smaller. But yeah, that's just how rare alien worms are. Please subscribe. It was very expensive. Anyways, now let's let these creatures hunt 3 different types of food so we can finally study how they use their insane slime to attack prey. And well, the first food we're gonna feed is flightless fruit flies. Yup, you've almost certainly seen these things if you're a fan of my channel, because they're a staple food for stuff like my aunt because of how small and easy to catch they are. And while I'm thinking the bigger alien worms certainly aren't gonna go for them, we'll see what the baby alien worms do since they're so much smaller. So I immediately dropped one of the flightless fruit flies right next to one of the smaller baby alien worms. And initially it seemed like the worm was maybe sort of interested in the fly, but it wasn't attacking it or anything. But that was until this. Did you see that? Let's rewind that and play that back in slow-mo, because if you look very closely, the worm actually locked onto the fly and shot its alien slime out. Yep, this string of white stuff is the slime that had actually managed to land on the fly. But yeah, because it's a baby, it barely shot any slime at all. But even though the slime had completely immobilized the fly, making it not be able to escape, for some reason our alien worm did not go up to it at all to eat it. And for the next few hours, each time I tried to get one of these baby alien worms to eat a fly, it straight up just didn't. Okay, bro, I feel like if they were starving, they would eat these flies. But since these things are literally just so small, I feel like it's not even worth their effort to try and eat them. So let's move on to our second food source, which is wax worms. And as you can see, these things are a lot bigger
bigger and juicier, they will certainly eat this.
So I went ahead and located one of the larger alien worms and brought out one of the wax worms. You can see how the wax worm is essentially the same size as our alien worm, so I was almost expecting nothing to happen here. That was until this, when the alien worm locked onto the prey and it shot its slimy glue out. Now, it didn't shoot out a crazy amount, but it was enough for it to start moving in and eating the prey. Alien worms are equipped with these crazy mouths that have little razors inside of them, so they can absolutely decimate whatever they need to eat. However, you can see how the waxworm was not cooperating at all and was squirming everywhere, making it impossible to eat. So the alien worm decided to shoot even more slime out, which let it get a way better grip, and yeah, it started to eat. Dang, that is cool.
I swear, this worm is literally a straight up assassin. How is it taking down a worm that's basically the same size of its body?
It's sort of brutal to watch, but it's also insanely interesting because there would be times like this when this yellow liquid would just start to leak out of the wax worm, which the alien worm would just instantly slurp up. You'd probably like to see why I like to call these things alien worms with how weird they are.
Yo, let's go. It was actually sick to watch these guys get eaten. But of course, we haven't even done our craziest food source yet. It's finally time to feed some crickets, baby. Yeah, I don't know why animals love crickets so much, but they always give the coolest hunting for crickets. So yeah, sorry crickets, you guys are probably about to have a bad time.
So I once again found a decently sized alien worm and put the cricket right up to him. Now at first the worm just didn't really care and was letting the cricket walk all over him, but eventually I placed a cricket directly on the head of the alien worm, and that's when it finally started to show some interest. It all of a sudden raised its slime shooters up and shot a stream of slime onto the crickets, of course trying to stick it to the ground so it wouldn't be able to escape. Now crickets can be extremely fast and agile, so this glue is extremely necessary here so the worm can essentially strap it to the floor. And we can see it worked perfectly because when the cricket tried to start moving, well, it was completely stuck here, and the alien worm started to advance its creepy alien mouth up to the prey and started to consume it. Well, that was until like 2 minutes later when it decided it was bored and ran off into the moss, leaving the cricket stuck behind.
Yo, did the alien worm really just leave the cricket? Wait, nah, he came back. Bro, I thought he left. Wait, bro, I gotta get my camera back out. I didn't realize he was gonna come back.
Yeah, apparently the alien worm wasn't done eating, so it came back so it could fill up a bit more. Anyway, since these things apparently love eating crickets, I decided to go around and feed the rest of the alien worms with their own crickets. And yeah, once again, you can just see how they shoot out their alien goo and just absolutely devour the prey from head to toe, sucking all the juices out.
Well, I'm happy we got to feed all those food sources to our worms. But oh guys, we cannot forget about the alien mold that I put in the cave. Check out how much it has grown. It's like taking up the whole dish.
But of course, I wanted to see if the alien worms would interact with this thing in any weird way, so I went ahead and brought some of them over. Now, of course, don't worry, despite this stuff being literally mold, it's not dangerous in any way to anything that's alive. And apparently our alien worms knew that, because this one decided it just wanted to start walking all along the side of this alien mold stuff.
Okay, bro, even though this alien mold is completely harmless, I just feel kind of weird about letting this guy crawl on this, but I mean, I guess it's fine. Dang, I wonder what it feels like to walk on that stuff. It's gotta feel weird.
But yeah, nothing monumental happened. It was just kind of cool to see the alien worms be sort of interested in this mold. Yep, I might actually be one of the first people to successfully keep these creatures. And speaking of insane creatures, this next video has every type of craziest snake in the world. You gotta see this. This is a $100,000 two-headed snake that literally has a different personality in each head. And I'll be showing you why this is the most expensive snake on Earth, along with a $25,000 largest snake in the world, all the way down to a literal $1 snake.
Yes, so this first snake I was actually able to buy for only $1. Just from some guy on eBay saying he just wanted it gone. But this snake inside is looking extremely weird. I gotta get a closer look at this.
So I opened up the container to reveal that my suspicions were correct. This thing looked extremely abnormal. It literally didn't have scales like a normal snake would, and in fact, it looked more like a mutant worm. But little did I know that these things have some of the scariest mouths out of any animal on Earth.
Yo, and this thing is like slimy. Is this even a snake?
Now, I was right to be suspicious because when I went to scan a picture of this into Google, it told me that indeed it was not even a snake. It said that this is actually something called a giant Mexican Sicilian.
Yo, and it's saying this thing has some of the craziest hunting abilities. Oh my gosh, I just got to test this.
In order to see its special abilities, I quickly built this dude up a home. home. Google told me to use a bunch of moist dirt to make a deep floor area so the worm snake thing can dig around. Then I put some natural decorations around. And finally, these Sicilian creatures sometimes can be fully aquatic in the wild, but in captivity, all we need is this nice little water dish to fill its water needs.
Well, boy, let me get you in. Now, apparently these things do have poisonous skin, which is why I'm using a snake hook. And well, now he's in there. Let's see his special abilities he has.
Now, these guys' first special ability is, well, they love to dig in dirt, like I was saying earlier. You can see how quickly he just completely disappeared from sight. And well, while this guy settles into his new home, I just had to find some videos of this species hunting. And in this amazing video by Willipede, we could see how this Sicilian just slowly inches up to a mealworm, acting all innocent and stuff, but the second he gets within striking distance, it pounces onto the worm and instantly starts to drag it underground, where we can then see it finish off the mealworm down there. But the thing is, this Sicilian hunting is not even nearly the coolest thing in this video. Like, what does the world's longest snake even eat? Well, to find out, let's go to our next snake, which is 250 times more expensive.
And I specifically chose this species because it has an insanely unique special ability that I just have to test.
If you're wondering what species is inside this container, well, everyone, this is a Western hognose snake. And yep, it actually costed exactly $250. The prices in this video are not a lie. But anyways, these things are freaky because the patterns on their back almost look identical to the patterns on a rattlesnake. It has almost the same color too. But the main characteristic that makes this thing stand out is its nose. That, well, kind of makes it look like a hog, apparently, hence why they are called a hog-nosed snake. Pretty creative.
Now, anyways, this thing is actually a real snake, unlike the $1 one, but that means we gotta build it another enclosure. Oh yeah, that was a pretty cool transition. But anyways, this will let us show off its special ability.
Now for the floor, we want to use a material called snake aspen, which is perfect for our $250 snake because it's super easy to dig and burrow through, which yeah, in the wild, these guys apparently like to do to stay protected from the intense desert heat. Then we want to add tons of decorations like the snake hide so the snake can slither inside. And yeah, even though this enclosure looks pretty barren and empty, that's exactly what the snake species prefers, so it can slither around a ton.
So yeah, basically the reason I wanted to get this species is because they're the drama queens of the snake world. They basically put on this crazy show to scare off any predator that gets near them.
But yeah, this guy was just non-stop hissing at me if you listen closely. So I decided to pick him up with tweezers and moved him to the new enclosure.
Okay, there we go. Jeez Louise, you are a feisty fella, Mr. Snake. But the thing is, I didn't even get to show off its coolest special ability yet. Let me try and do that.
Unfortunately though, before I could show you that, the snake decided it was time to go for a little burrow. Yep, like I said earlier, this is something they do to hide from the intense desert heat. This is not their main ability though, but it's just kind of cool to see that they can do this like our first one.
And yes, I actually do have a heat lamp that will recreate the desert heat. I just don't have it set up right now because it makes it easier to film without the roof on.
Anyways, I dug up the snake so I could show you guys its special ability.
First of all, why don't you take a look at his head?
If you look very closely, this snake's head has actually gotten like 2 times as big as it was before. They're actually able to puff out their cheeks when a potential predator is nearby to mimic a rattlesnake's head shape. It's also sort of similar to how cobras make their neck come out to look bigger.
But the main thing the snake does to not get eaten is it actually plays dead.
So while the snake slithered to darkness so he would feel safe, take a look at this footage of when this guy went up to a wild Western hognose snake and he started to put his hands near it. Almost instantly, the snake decided to play dead, so it flipped on its back and started to give the funniest performance I've ever seen. And eventually, it just stopped moving completely, and when this dude went to pick it up, you could see how good of an actor it is. It's so funny too, because every time he would flip the snake right side up, it would just flip back upside down instantly. Yo, shout out to Nicole Berry, he's the one who uploaded this, and he has tons of other videos like this. Anyways, I quickly finished setting up everything in his tank and gave him a little water bowl too. As a reward for scaring it a little bit while I was moving it, I gave it a nice juicy mouse. Yeah, pretty cool to watch these guys eat. They'll eat about one of these a week during this stage of life, but remember guys, this video is just getting started. I have so many other questions, like do $100,000 two-headed snakes fight over their food? Well, we're about to find out. So next up, let's see what a $500 snake looks like.
Now, we're getting pricey, but it's for a very good reason, as you'll see. But yeah, this snake was kind of just shipped in this bag. I feel kind of bad for it. Let me get this out really quickly.
Inside of this bag is a special kind of snake called a Woma python. And he was not happy about being in that shipping bag. He kept trying to strike at me through the glass, but you could see how beautiful this species is with that striped tan and orange color.
Okay, the reason I got this guy for the $500 species is because they're known for being one of the friendliest snake species. But this guy has tried to strike at me a lot. But yeah, I guess he's just super stressed from the shipping.
Obviously, I don't want this guy to be stressed or angry at me, so I put this box over the top to give him some nice darkness, and I went and put him in a secluded and warm part of my house while I built his home. Now I'm just gonna speed run this build in order to not bore you guys, but yeah, it's basically the same as that last enclosure, only this time I put way more wood and branches so the python would have some area to climb over. And these guys can get big, so that's why this enclosure is pretty massive.
Anyways, I got the snake right here. Let's give a check on him. How are you doing in there? And okay. If you don't know what the brown stuff on the floor is, well, it might be poo. But no, that's actually a super good sign, because if you didn't know, when the snakes are in their shipping containers, they don't go to the bathroom at all. But the fact he's just let it all out means he feels a lot warmer and safer now, and that's good. I'm happy you're feeling a little bit better, buddy.
And to make sure he felt even safer, I went and moved him into the enclosure. I still didn't really feel comfortable enough to hold him based off how much he wanted me dead. But yeah, pretty simple stuff, and he went to go slither to safety. He was definitely starting to feel less stressed.
All right, the main reason I wanted to get the friendliest snake species in the world is because, as many of you know, my mom is like scared of all the pets I get. So I was thinking this was gonna help her cure her fear of snakes. But little is she gonna know when we try to feed it, this guy, he's not so friendly right now. All right, Mom, can you come in the garage? Hi, I just got a new pet to show you today.
Okay.
So why don't you come over here and just take a look in this tank and tell me what you see.
Oh my gosh. What kind of snake is this?
That's called a Woma python, and I wanted to get this species because it is the friendliest species in the world,
yeah,
actually.
right. It looks like it's crazy, like it's just gonna strike any second.
Yeah, he is kind of mad right now, but I want to cure your fear of snakes, basically. So I need you to feed it.
No.
All right, go ahead, stick it inside.
Shaking. All right, this is the first time you fed him too, right?
Yeah, he's super hungry. That's the main reason why he's so angry right now. All right, he's coming, he's coming.
No.
Come on, eat it. He looks hungry. You can see the hunger in his eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Are you scared right now?
Yeah, a little bit.
This is supposed to cure your fear, though. Make some mouse noises. Maybe you can trick him. Nice.
Yeah, this dude was taking a while to eat, but eventually we caught this.
Maybe if you just like, don't drop it, but like move.
Oh my god, dude, we're closing this now. I'm gonna get a replay of that to see exactly what just happened because it was scary.
But it looks like he's going to hide in his little hide, so I don't want to stress him out anymore if he's not that hungry. So yeah, thanks for trying to feed him though.
But don't worry, literally as soon as later that day, this snake was feeling way more comfortable and he finally started to eat. Let's go. This is gonna be a sick pet, but it's not even gonna be nearly as cool as our final 2 snakes. Yes, sir. Next up, we got a $25,000 largest snake in the world.
You see, this species is called giant reticulated pythons, and they are absurdly big. And if you can't already tell, I probably don't have enough space right here. I would literally have to transform my whole garage into an enclosure.
That's why instead, to be able to see and learn about a $25,000 snake, I hopped on a plane and flew across the country to this amazing reptile zoo that supposedly has one of these insane snakes.
Yo, what's up? I just traveled across the country because I heard you guys got some of the craziest snakes here. Is that true?
We did.
Oh my gosh, you gotta show me.
Okay, you wanna see him?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's go.
So I followed her across the zoo, and this place was crazy. They had animals everywhere, including literal alligators.
Oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into?
But eventually, I got to this area here and waited while she brought out the $25,000 snake.
Oh my gosh, this thing is insane.
Yes, this is the giant reticulated python, an absolute beast of a snake. And honestly, I was kind of even scared to stand near it. This thing could easily take me out if it wanted to.
This is actually just kind of crazy to stand by. I can just touch it. Like, this is bigger than my hand. What? So how long can this species kind of get? I mean, like, is this like the longest species in the world?
Yeah, so they in the wild have been measured up to 30 feet.
Yup, imagine being outside and just seeing a snake over 30 feet long. I would instantly run away. But before we figure out the exact length of this specific snake, I wanted to try and hold it. But if you couldn't guess, it was insanely hard to do with just one hand because of this snake weighing a minimum of 150 pounds. But despite its massive size, you could tell the snake was being extremely friendly towards us and not biting us or anything. Very interesting.
So how long does it take for one of these snakes to get this long? Like,
It depends on how you feed them. But normally about 7 to 10 years, something like that.
so wow, this thing is 10 years old, and how small do they start? I mean, do you have like an egg or something? Like we can show how it hatched?
I actually do. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, let's go
Okay,
see
let's
that.
go see it.
So she brought me over here where they have tons of these trays full of eggs. Yeah, they keep them in these containers to make sure they have the perfect level of heat to hatch. Yeah, she showed me what one of them looked like, and it's just insane how a snake can hatch out of something like this, then eventually one day be this big. That's a massive size increase.
So yeah, what do they eat to get this big?
Well, I don't know if you're gonna want to hear it. They eat about a 10-pound rabbit.
So they just eat giant rabbits. Like, how big would it be? Like, can you show with your hands?
It'd be like, it's a big size rabbit.
Oh.
Nah, so they really just slither around in the wild looking for innocent little rabbits, and then they pounce on it and absolutely devour it. Yeah, rest in peace to any rabbits that see snakes like this. But you see, what makes this species so good at hunting is they literally have these built-in heat sensors on their face. All of these tiny little holes on the upper lip of the python can track exactly where a live prey is, which basically just gives them wall hacks to see rabbits amongst tall, thick grass. And this snake, compared to everyday objects, is pretty cool because here it is next to a massive spray bottle. It is so much bigger. Then here it is next to a water bottle. Yep, pretty big. And of course, here it is next to the TerraGreen snake plushie, which even though this awesome snake plushie is a whopping 36 inches long, even when this python is completely curled up, it kind of dwarfs the size of the plushie. But yeah, this thing curled up is approximately 56 inches long, but fully stretched out, this thing easily reaches over 20 feet.
This is so cool. But the craziest thing is I've heard this is not even your guys' rarest snake, is it?
Oh, nowhere near. Nowhere near.
Oh my gosh. Can you show
wanna
me?
see it?
Yeah.
Okay,
let's
so
go
over
see
here,
it.
I got over here.
Yup, the $100,000 snake is also located at this reptile zoo. And guys, it's the two-headed snake. There's only a handful of two-headed snakes in existence, and this zoo doesn't only just have one or two. They have 3 two-headed snakes. So I waited here for her to bring out one for me to see.
Wow, wait, so this is the two-headed snake you guys have, right?
This is the two-headed snake.
Oh my gosh. It's not gonna bite me, right?
Nah, I don't.
Oh!
Yep, literally instantly, this snake tried to bite me, which is kind of a surprise because this specific snake actually knows me. About a year ago, I visited the guy who originally hatched this snake, and I made a whole video about it. But this zoo literally bought it from him, and a lot has changed about this snake, and I'm gonna show you guys some very interesting stuff.
So the thing that's so interesting about these two-headed snakes is they have like 2 different personalities, is that right?
Mm-hmm. They can, very much. There's usually a dominant and a non-dominant.
And we can see how that was instantly demonstrated with this left dominant head literally just pulling the right head along as it just sat there. But super interestingly, sometimes the two heads will almost fight in which direction they want to go, which causes the two-head snake to just sit there motionless, not moving at all. And here's some footage I recorded last year of this two-headed snake eating some mice. As you can see, both the heads struck at the mice at the same time, but only the left head was actually able to grab onto his mouse. And as that left head started to swallow, all of a sudden the right head decided to just grab on too, so now they were both eating the same mouse. But this could actually be bad for two-headed snakes, so the owner separated the heads, and he gave a separate mouse to the right head so they could both eat in peace. Pretty cool. Yep, how does something like this even exist? I don't know. Oh, but this next pet video is another ant video where I put my ant colony against even crazier obstacles than the first one. You gotta see this. I've seen videos of ants doing insane things to survive, like in this one where they built a boat out of their bodies to survive a flood, or in this one where they built a dangling bridge out of their bodies to attack a wasp nest. So I was wondering, if I put my 1,000 ants into obstacle courses, will they do similar things to complete them, or are my ants just not that smart?
Well, I just spent hours gathering 1,000 ants out my old ant nest, so I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to put these guys up against their first ant obstacle.
Obstacle number 1 is this thing. Basically, what we do is put some massive dead insect food at the bottom, and then we fill it with a bunch of sand to turn it into one of those 2D ant nests. Basically, we'll be able to watch the ants dig out all sorts of tunnel systems in here, and if they actually find the insect food I hit at the bottom, then they'll pass the obstacle and move on to the next obstacles that get harder and harder as the video goes on.
All right, let's not waste any time, and well, let's just do this. Wow, that is very satisfying watching 1,000 ants fall in here. Okay.
Now, of course, immediately, the ants all just started to try and climb the walls of the top area to try and escape. But surprisingly, many of the ants were already starting to dig down that center 2D part of the nest.
Oh my gosh, this is happening so fast. Wait, is there already progress on the side of the tank? Oh, I just put these guys in literally like 45 seconds ago, and they've already dug like half an inch down in. What?
Yep, and if you check out this time-lapse footage, you can see just how quickly they were getting work done. They literally work like mini drills skills to dig these tiny tunnels through the sand. But in reality, it's a tiring and grueling process where each individual grain of sand has to be picked up from a worker underground, brought all the way up to the surface through this little hole, and then dropped off at this pile of sand over here. Now, while I was recording this, it was actually getting pretty late in the day, so I decided to turn off the lights and came back the next day to see the progress made. And guys, the next day I came back to the ant nest looking like this. Yeah.
Bro, what? It's been literally like 8 hours. How did these ants build an entire intricate nest?
And not only were all these intricate tunnel systems made, but remember those dead insects I placed at the bottom as food? Well, it's safe to say that ants found those too, and it looks like the whole colony had swarmed them and had already started to devour them. And since they got to the insects, that technically means they passed this first obstacle. Congratulations, guys. It happened so fast, I literally didn't even capture that on camera.
Oh, but this next obstacle the ants are going up against will definitely be caught on camera, because the next obstacle is the tightrope of doom.
Yes, you heard that right. And if you're wondering what that is, well, it's this thing. Yup, the ants will have to walk across this extremely narrow tightrope over a pit filled with fire and flames.
Oh, I gotta put that out. Oh, yep, put that out. Oh, are you gonna go out?
No, I'm just kidding. That would be crazy. These are literally my pets. I would never do that. But I will be trapping the ants down here if they fall by lining the walls of this pit with this super slippery liquid stuff called fluon. I know you can't really see this stuff since it's invisible, but basically when an ant tries to walk up on here now, it'll just slip off completely. Yeah, this stuff is super slippery.
And you guys are about to see why this challenge gets so interesting in a second. But if you look over at the 2D ant nest, you'll actually see I have a little hole here plugged up with some paper towels. And if you also look here, I got some tubing, meaning I can connect this to the obstacle. So yeah, let's just get this obstacle started. Come on, ants, let's get in here.
Immediately after plugging in the tubing, obviously ants noticed and started walking in. I mean, there's 1,000 ants. You can't even get away from them for a second. So that's what makes these obstacles fun, because it only took like 10 seconds till our first ant entered the tightrope of doom tank. Now, to pass this obstacle, the ants quite literally just need to get one of these pieces of insect legs back across the tightrope, which I think might be impossible, but let's see how they do. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the ants started off with some pretty lackluster performance because our first ants that made it to this tightrope didn't actually walk onto it. They kind of just walked around it on the corner of this platform where they just ended up just slipping off. Yeah, come on, guys. What are you doing? But we got 1,000 ants, so I was expecting at least one of these ants to eventually step onto this tightrope. But as tons more ants started to walk into this room, yeah, they kind of all just did the same exact thing. And the pit started to get absolutely filled up with tons of ants.
Come on, ants, what are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. I think this is actually my fault, and to make them walk across the tightrope, I just gotta fix something. Let me show you how to fix it.
Basically, what I did was first of all tape 2 extra pieces of string to the tightrope to make it a bit thicker so the ants would feel safer when they walked on it. And also, I rubbed this insect jelly food on the tightrope to make the bridge smell like jelly. And yeah, hopefully this will make them want to walk on it. Now, this worked exactly how I wanted it to, because within the first minute, our first workers actually started to walk onto the tightrope and explored it, just very slowly. But over time, more and more ants started to walk onto it, and it was actually kind of funny because sometimes the ants would literally just be hanging from each other's legs because there would just be way too many on the tightrope at the same time. Dang, these ants aren't very good at saving their friends. But it didn't take long for our first brave ant to actually make it to the end of this tightrope. But that wasn't even half of the challenge, because now, if you remember, the ants actually got to pick up one of these insect legs and bring them back across the tightrope. And this ant clearly wasn't looking too interested in that, because yeah, he was just completely ignoring them. So I kept waiting until some more ants made it to the side by crossing the tightrope. And surprisingly, one of the ants that made it actually did seem interested in the legs, because he went up to one of them and actually started to bite it. But if you couldn't tell, this leg is kind of way too big for this worker to carry it all by himself, and for some reason, even after tons of ants made it onto this side, none of them came to help this poor worker move the leg. But this worker had a mission. He knew he needed to take a leg back to the colony, so what he did was he went up to one of the smaller insect legs that he could actually carry by himself, and he actually picked it up and started to walk. Yep, yeah, it wasn't super efficient or anything, but theoretically, he could pass this obstacle for the entire colony. only if he played his cards right. And played his cards right, he did, because I'm not joking. He walked straight over to the tightrope, and he might have had an extremely close call where he almost fell off, but somehow he managed to save himself. And then the ant actually started to walk across the tightrope with an insect leg in his mouth.
Oh my gosh, guys. This is genuinely so insane. I am rooting for you, bro. I mean, you got a long way to go. But guys, the ants were doing so awful up to this point. You can see how many fell into the pit of doom. Bro, this dude, he's just an absolute killer.
Yup, literally none of the 1,000 ants decided to help this dude. He was doing this entirely solo. And so he kept on marching, completely ignoring any ants that were in his way. And this dude made it all the way to the end of the tightrope, where he then walked onto the platform to complete the obstacle. Oh my gosh, this ant is insane. Seriously, I gotta name this guy. I think I'm gonna name him Anthony. And we're probably never gonna be able to find Anthony again since all the ants look the same. But seriously, everyone spam some W's in the comments for Anthony. That was so insane.
And since these guys beat the obstacle, I'm gonna give them the insect's legs as a prize. Thanks, Anthony. Hopefully you guys enjoy.
So I quickly moved all the fallen soldiers back to the 2D ant nest. And well, this colony is now ready for its third obstacle. And oh boy, am I excited for this one.
Because guys, these ants are gonna have to break into a vault. Yeah, like a robbery, basically.
Yep, you heard that right, a vault. For this obstacle, I literally built up a DIY bank vault from scratch out of paper that I knew the ants would probably be able to break into. You can see it's pretty good. Sort of looks like a real vault. And anyways, it's cool because the door actually opens, so I could fill this bank vault with an absolutely insane amount of seeds. Yeah, I put so many seeds in here.
Because yeah, apparently seeds are this species of ants' favorite food, so they should absolutely swarm this thing. But I got this hot glue gun so I could seal this vault door shut, because I gotta make this actually a kind of hard obstacle. So let me just go and put some glue on here. Oh yeah, just like that. All right, the vault is completely sealed shut with glue now, so let's see if these ants can actually get the seeds out of it. This is going to be very interesting to watch.
So yeah, I just put it in, and as you can imagine, the 1,000 ant colony immediately started to climb onto it. Especially when things are put into colonies' nests, they need to investigate it to make sure it's not a threat. And with this, I think they pretty much immediately knew it wasn't a threat, because none of them were biting it or anything. And actually, a lot of them were just using it as an opportunity to climb out of the enclosure. That's not good. But yeah, the vault right now is pretty sealed shut, and I don't even think the ants knew that there were seeds inside of here. So nothing really eventful happened, to be honest.
Okay, this is not exactly going to plan. I'm just gonna take this box and put it in there. Oh, hopefully I didn't crush any ants. Okay, and then let me scoop up all the ants that fell off.
So yeah, I got all those fallen soldiers back into the nest, of course.
Well, that didn't exactly work so well, but I kind of knew it wasn't gonna work so well, so that's why I came equipped with this stuff. See, basically, it's a cup of water and a big cup of sugar, which I'm gonna pour into the water. Then basically, I can mix the water and sugar around to make sugar water, which ants love the smell and taste of. And using this paintbrush, I actually just wanna go and paint our vault with it. And basically, this will make the vault not only taste like sugar, but it will also just make it kind of soggy since it's made out of paper, and it should make it able so the ants can chew through it and stuff and get to the seeds.
So yeah, I absolutely just soaked this vault in the sugar water, and without wasting any time, I got this thing in the nest. All right, ants, let's see how you do this time. And oh boy, were things a lot more interesting this time around, because right away, tons more ants were way more interested. You can see how after the ants would walk onto the vault, they would just completely stand still. That's because they were putting their mouth up to the paper and were just completely licking all the sugar off the paper. Yeah, this is not really what I had in mind. I thought this was gonna make them wanna completely chew through the paper, not lick it. But yeah, so many ants got their fair share of the sugar. However, I didn't see a single ant even trying to find or even acknowledge that there were seeds inside of here. Well, that was until this moment. When you see this hole here, well, just out of nowhere, an ant just came up to it and walked into the hole. And yeah, there was just an ant inside of this vault with the absolute jackpot of seeds. I don't know how this hole got here. I guess maybe the sogginess from the sugar water made it droop or something, but wow. That is crazy.
Oh my gosh, wait, I think the ants just completed the obstacle. Let me get all the excess ants off this safe real quick.
And yeah, once the extra ants had fallen off, I cut open the vault to see if that ant had actually made it inside. And as you can see, he absolutely had made it inside. Oh my gosh, bro, your colony has no clue how much you just clutched up for them.
Wait, imagine if this is Anthony, that same ant that beat the obstacle course. That would be insane, but I mean, I don't know if this is the same ant. But anyways, W ant.
So yeah, I just went and poured the entire vault's loot pile onto the 2D ant nest, and well, the ants have been rewarded with the absolute motherload of food up to this point. But I've been saving the craziest obstacle for last to really find out how smart my ant colony actually is. And this final one is the floor is lava.
Yup, the floor is lava, and thankfully I already have it built right here.
This is the final obstacle, and you may be wondering, bruh, TerraGreen, where's the lava? Well, the lava is these strips of red on the floor right here. You see, these are actually extremely sticky pieces of tape, and if the ants try to walk on them, well, they're gonna get stuck, of course. So if the ants want to get to the strawberries that I put at the end of the obstacle, they're gonna have to use one of the 3 tools I provided for them to figure out how they can maybe cross this lava. Or maybe they'll make a crazy bridge out of their bodies to cross it. Who knows?
Anyways, I wanted to make sure most of these guys actually participated, so I spent the past few hours individually picking up each of the ants from the ant nest and transporting them into this container. Or at least as many as I can get. The rest are kind of under there. That way, they could be easily transported.
Anyways, I wasted no time and I just dumped the ants straight in. If you can't tell, I actually changed the design of the obstacle a little bit, because if you remember that red tape, well, I actually replaced it with an even stickier and thicker kind of tape to make sure these ants wouldn't be able to just walk across. Anyways, let's see how they do. As you could probably guess, lots of the ants immediately went up to the tape and partially got stuck in the front. But don't worry guys, I'll be watching the ants throughout this obstacle, and any of the ants that looks like they get super stuck in the middle, I'll be picking up with these tweezers and moving back to the start so they don't get stuck in here permanently and hurts. Anyways, to actually cross this tape, like I said earlier, I gave these ants different tools, like a pile of dirt, some pieces of string, and even some wood chips to see if they'd be smart enough to actually use these things to their advantage to cross the piece of tape. And while it may look like the ants are not using the tools here, if you look very closely down here near the dirt, they've actually already started to push this pile of dirt onto the tape to make a little bridge that they can walk onto. If they keep building up this bridge, they would actually be able to cross this with no problem whatsoever. But right when I was filming this, I actually noticed that an ant had actually been walking across the tape and somehow had made it extremely close to the end. Yeah, I have no clue how this ant just managed to ignore the stickiness of this tape. I guess his legs were just extremely strong or something, because he got all the way to the end where he had a bit of trouble pulling himself off the tape, but eventually he was able to do it, and wow. Well, this ant just technically passed the obstacle.
Oh my gosh, bro. I didn't even see this ant, but I mean, he just passed the obstacle. I guess that's fair and square. Good job, bro. Why is it the past 3 obstacles, it's been a single ant that's clutched it up for the entire colony? But anyways, I gotta get all these guys off the tape so they aren't hurt at all.
So yeah, I got them all picked up into a container and transported them back to their nest safely.
All right, because you guys beat it, I'm gonna give you this piece of the strawberry.
I don't know why ants are so smart, bro. But anyways, it was around this point of the year when I decided to fly to Australia to try and find the craziest animals ever. What I found might shock you. Australia is known for the craziest and deadliest animals. That's why I'm going there to flip 100 objects to find crazy bugs, venomous creatures, and so much more underneath. I'll be starting in Australia's most iconic rainforest, but by the end, we're gonna get to the iconic Australian desert with insane animals everywhere. But don't think the rainforest is boring, because literally under this first object, I instantly found something deadly. This is a baby giant centipede, which when they get older are known for having some of the most painful bites in the animal kingdom. Since we're on Australia, we're very likely to see a way bigger one soon. Under the second object, I found something I've always wanted to find.
Oh my gosh, I thought there was nothing here, but there's a literal massive bug.
But that's exactly part of this bug's design. This is a spiny leaf insect, one of the most camouflage insects in existence. You could barely even see it when I was standing on this leaf. Pretty cool. So I kept exploring, and when I got to object number 3, I found nothing. So I'm only gonna show the most interesting animals from now on, which thankfully object number 6 had something super interesting. At first, you may just think these are regular old ants, but if you look closely, it's actually an insane species. They are trapjaw ants, which you can tell by their massively wide trapjaw mandibles. They have these microscopic hairs inside the jaws that when a prey touches it, the jaws snap within a fraction of a second, making it almost impossible for prey to escape. Yeah, Australia is crazy. Now, as I continued on the trail, I was gonna flip this log, but on top, I noticed there was actually a special species of millipede, which apparently has the ability to spit acid out of its mouth. Now, if you didn't know, with me, I have the backpack, where I packed tons of cool objects to interact with the animals I find. And this time I grabbed a pack of paintbrushes. I wanted to see how this bug would react to being rubbed by one, and yeah, he was pretty mad. Initially, he kept curling up and biting the end of the brush, but eventually I caught it doing this. Yup, it just sprayed its acid defense chemical, which stained the edge of my paintbrush, and yeah, it just kept biting it over and over. Well, sorry for disturbing you, little guy. That was pretty cool to watch, though. Now, as I continued on to object number 11, I found this. It's not a rock, it's actually a termite nest. Yeah, termites will spend years, day by day, constructing a nest out of dirt. Sometimes they even get absolutely massive like this one. Although this one looked like it may have been abandoned, and there was something infiltrating it. Yo, there's like a weird tail thing coming out of this nest. Yeah, it was literally partly inside the termite nest and poking its head out. I thought I had found some undocumented snake species or maybe a leech, but if you actually really focus hard on how this thing is moving, and in specific this tiny little white thing on the edge of its head, you can tell that this is a baby land planarian. If you don't know what these are, well, they are insanely creepy. In this footage, you can see how they eat. Basically, they go up to an unsuspecting snail or worm, then all of a sudden they completely wrap around it, releasing a sticky mucus to make it impossible for the prey to escape. Then they push some weird alien tube out their body that they can inject into the prey to then slurp up the insides like a smoothie. Yeah, talk about brutal. I think I'm gonna have to leave you alone. Now, under object number 16, I found a cricket, which I just thought was cool because in America, the crickets are a bright tan color usually, but this one was way darker. Now, I quickly took out the backpack and grabbed a clear container out from inside. Yeah, if you didn't know, these crickets make an excellent food source for other animals I'll find, so I'll be saving this to feed it to something later. As I continued walking through this beautiful rainforest, I came across a little creek. This looks like the perfect water area for deadly crocodiles to be swimming in. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be standing so close, actually. Yeah, I don't know why everything in Australia is so deadly, but I went and flipped some rocks along the river, where I of course found a little earthworm. Nice. Under another river rock, I found a pretty solid-sized beetle grub. You can see it was quite a bit bigger than my gloved fingertip, but some of these beetle grubs will seriously grow so large over the course of a few years that they may turn into beetles that are just genuinely insane. All right, let me put your rock back, mister. Hopefully you turn into an amazing, massive beetle one day. But as I left the river a little bit, I found easily the weirdest thing yet. Wait a second. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's something moving under this log. Yeah, it was a bunch of extremely weird white things moving around constantly. I had to get out the backpack to grab a flashlight so I can get a better look at what was going on. This gave me a bit of a better view to see that inside of here was tons and tons of super thin legs. But they were just shaking so much that I had no clue what these things were until I poked a stick inside, which gave me a slightly better look at one of them. Yeah, if we pause at the perfect moment, it may look like some sort of spider, but in reality, this is a phantom crane fly. Apparently, footage of these guys is insanely hard to get because, well, they shake like crazy when they detect a predator. But in this rare footage I found, you can see how they fly like an alien spaceship. I'm not even gonna lie, this might be the coolest fly species on Earth. What? For object 29, I flipped some of these dead sea things and found another super cool ant species. You can see by these guys' awesome gold and green color that they are Australian weaver ants. And what's so interesting is you see how this guy has its green abdomen pointing up? Well, that's actually their special ability. While most ants have mandibles or stingers to take down their prey, well, weaver ants literally have an acid spray in their abdomens that they use to either defend themselves like these ants or spray other attacking ants. And yeah, they also build bridges out of their bodies to help the rest of the colony walk across leaves. Talk about a crazy ant species. Now, the next animal I found was actually under a tree. If you look closely, there is actually some sort of bug that looked like it was just floating right under here. I had to put the stick behind it so my camera would focus on it, and after it did, I saw that this is actually a super cool animal called an inchworm. These guys are basically able to float under trees by spinning a tiny thread of silk that connects them to the leaves above so they can just hang from it. But this guy actually climbed onto the stick I was holding, and when I went to put him back, you could see how they have some of the funniest movements. Since their legs are only on the front and back of their body, they just walk around by curling their entire body up like this. Seems like a lot of effort, but yeah, I just put this guy right back. Now, object 41 was this coconut, which I found out something super cool about. But interestingly, I first noticed that there was actually one of those trapjaw ants from him earlier, biting onto my finger. Yeah, I wasn't joking about how strong these things' jaws are, and he was glued onto my hand just trying to inject his venomous stinger in. Good thing I had these gloves on. Anyways, what is so interesting about this coconut is almost this perfect circle drilled into the side of it. This is not natural. It's actually a sign of a giant white-tailed rat. You see, these things live in the Australian rainforest and find fallen coconuts. They then use their insanely large teeth to drill a massive hole into coconuts, which most animals can't do. Then they drink up all the coconut water and eat some of that tasty white meat on the inside. But after the rat leaves, other bugs also come in here, like these sap beetles, to eat the bacteria that grows inside. Dang, a lot of life in one single coconut. And so I kept on exploring, and when I flipped object 44, I found some of the weirdest springtails I've ever seen. If you didn't know, springtails are tiny little bugs that are usually white, but these ones in Australia I found are bright red. That may not seem super interesting, but if you didn't know, there's a massive market online of people buying and selling super rare springtail species, and apparently 10 Australian red springtails sells for over $30. So yeah, if I was smart, I'd grab these and sell them, but I don't want to interfere with the wildlife, so I'll let them be. Now this trail is awesome because not only does it end up in the iconic Australian red desert, but it also passed by a literal beach. Yeah, the rainforest was connected to the water here, so I figured I should flip a couple seaside rocks. Under some of them were these aquatic snails with these pretty cool looking shells, and out of other rocks, crabs would dart out looking for cover. I wanted to get a close-up of that crab that ran out, so I flipped the rock right next to it and found an even bigger crab.
Oh, look at him, bro. He's just staring at me with his claws up.
Yeah, you could see, compared to the size of my finger, he could definitely give me a pretty good pinch, but thankfully he went and retreated down into his perfectly placed hole. Now there was also some tiny fish here that I tried to catch with this net from the backpack, but they were just so unbelievably fast if you can even see them moving around in this footage. This ocean is crazy though, because the Great Barrier Reef is literally less than 10 miles from where I was standing. That place is home to some of the craziest and deadliest ocean life in the world, so I think I'll definitely come back here to make an underwater video one day.
Make sure you're subscribed so when I come back here, you'll get notified about the insane video I make. Anyways, yeah, let's keep exploring.
Now, back in the rainforest, I ended up finding a little log and flipped it. Underneath was just some super tiny, kind of boring ants, which normally I wouldn't show, but as I was watching back this footage, I noticed this leaf had something super cool on it. See all those weird bumps perfectly laid out across the leaf? Well, those are eggs. Apparently, there's a bug called a large leaf-footed bug that lays their eggs on the bottom of leaves, and apparently are able to lay them in this perfect brick formation, which I just find interesting how symmetrical it is. As I continued down the rainforest trail, I found something pretty crazy.
Yo, these have got to be the biggest fruits I've seen in my life.
And in fact, this is actually the largest fruit in the world, called a jackfruit. But what was cool was that it was split open by some animal and was completely rotting. Tons of wildlife was eating it up, like these flies, and it even had some little worm larvae things that were just eating their fair share of it too. Must be pretty tasty. Just kidding, that looks absolutely nasty. Now the next thing I found was under another tree, but my camera wasn't really focusing on it, so I held the backpack up behind it to show you guys what it is. It may look like some sort of moth butterfly thing caught on a spider web, but in fact this yellow triangle thing is the spider itself. It's a type of northern jewel spider, and yeah, they're born with these crazy rock solid sharp patterns on their back. This makes it so spiders' biggest predators, birds, have a way harder time eating them. The last animal I found in the rainforest section was under this log. It was another crab, but this time it was a land crab, which is a little bit different than the beach crab we found earlier. These guys actually quite enjoy eating crickets, and if you remember in the backpack, I actually caught a cricket in this container earlier in the video, which might kind of not be alive anymore, but it'll still make for some great food. So I brought it over to the crab and waved it around in front of him. He kind of pretended to grab it, but then all of a sudden he darted away so fast into a little puddle. He was probably a little bit scared of me.
Well, I'll leave that with you, little buddy, if you want to eat it.
Well, I finally made it to the Australia desert, which has some of the most deadliest animals on Earth. And that was instantly proven because under this first rock was another baby centipede. But this guy was still pretty small. However, I'm super confident we're gonna find a way bigger one. Now, under this little piece of bark, there wasn't actually anything, but I did see something running around in the corner of my eye, so I went to try and catch it. When I did, I realized it was a burrowing frog, which apparently didn't want to be with me because it just jumped straight off my hand. But a frog means there's likely water nearby. And after walking around a little bit, I found this little pool.
Oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in here.
I wanted to get a closer look at some of the stuff in here, so I once again took out the backpack and once again grabbed out that clear container. This let me scoop up some of the wildlife in there there, which allowed me to catch the first aquatic animal, a tadpole. This is likely the same species of frog that I had just found, so it's pretty cool we found this. Anyways, the second animal I was able to scoop out of here was quite a bit different. This super weird, almost alien-looking creature is actually a dragonfly larva. Yeah, we've all seen dragonflies. They're pretty insane, cool-looking bugs. But yeah, apparently they start just as weird as babies living under the water. Now, finally, I was seeing one last creature in this pool of water, so I scooped it up. Yeah, these things are almost microscopic in size, but this is either some sort of water beetle or a type of shrimp. I can't really tell which one because of how blurry my footage was. But these guys are probably one of the main food sources of that dragonfly larva we had just seen. Now, as I continued on the trail, I ended up flipping rock 72, where something actually pretty cool did appear. If you look closely, this is a completely bright white spider. I have never seen a completely solid white spider, but apparently these are this color because it helps reflect the sunlight as it just gets so hot in these Australian deserts. This next rock also had something pretty cool. It was giant wood cockroaches. But what was even cooler was that right next to these guys was this bug running around. This is a top whittler bug, and apparently it's in the same family of bug that laid those crazy eggs earlier in the video. I'm happy we got to find one of these. But finally, after quite a lot of rock flips later of nothing, I finally found something I was looking for. And it kind of scared me when I first flipped the rock, but finally I had found a fully grown giant centipede. These things are crazy fast, so I kept getting spooked whenever it looked in my direction. But yeah, apparently despite having some of the most painful bites, it doesn't even have teeth. It actually injects its venom through two of its front legs that have been modified to attack prey. And while other invertebrates just go for small insects like scorpions, centipedes are known to take down literal lizards for lunch. Pretty crazy. Thankfully, the next rock that had something under it also didn't disappoint. Out from underneath ran a little type of velvet gecko. I didn't get to see it for long, but geckos are always pretty cool to find just because of how interesting of an animal they are. They're also some of the most common pet reptiles kept by people. Now, these next rock flips all rapid fire because I wasn't finding anything super insane, but I did find some termites finally. Also, I found this kind of cool grasshopper which just jumped into the grass, and I found a super cute caterpillar with a pretty unique pattern. If you're wondering, this caterpillar species turns into this pretty cool moth. But now, I only had one more rock flip till I got to 100, and I really wanted to find a snake here. So I really locked in to find the best rock I could that could have a snake under it. I needed to find a rock like this that had a little gap under it where a snake could be. But thankfully, it didn't take too long till I ended up finding this.
Oh, yo, is that a lizard tail or is that a snake?
But as I moved my camera to get a better angle, I was almost certain I had found the body of a snake here. So I very carefully moved the rock to get a little bit of a better look at what was under here. Thankfully, this didn't look like one of Australia's deadly snakes. In fact, based off the pattern, it looked like a Stimson's python, which take down their prey by constricting it, not with venom.
I swear, every single rock flipping video, I find something cool on the last rock. But dang, I mean, I don't really want to stress you out, bro, so I guess I'll just leave you under your rock.
Yep, that was an amazing rock flipping trip, but back to crazy pets. Have you ever wondered what is the difference between a $1 and $100,000 fish? Well, probably not, but now you will know because of this next crazy video. This is a $100,000 real pet shark tank. You literally have to feed them chunks of meat, and I'm gonna show you how people care for pets like this, along with tons of other prices of aquatic pets, all the way down to a literal $1 pet axolotl.
Yup, I just found this listing for $1 axolotl. But if you didn't know, axolotls usually cost a lot more than $1, so I'm like worried, is this thing gonna be in bad condition or something? I don't know, but let's go investigate.
So I drove to the seller's house, which thankfully wasn't too far. When I got there, he said he didn't want to be on camera, but he showed me the axolotl tank, and he told me why they were only $1. Apparently, his pet axolotl had way too many babies, and inside of this tank was one of the last babies he hadn't sold yet. So I quickly scooped it up into a bucket I brought with clean water, packed it in my car, and drove home.
All right, I made it, and I'm a little worried about this axolotl's condition because it didn't really seem like it was being kept in the best condition. You doing all right, little buddy? Let me just scoop you up, and we can get a closer look at this guy.
And unfortunately, my suspicions were correct, because when I took a closer look at the body of this baby axolotl, I noticed its front right hand was missing. If you look over here, this is what it's supposed to look like, but yeah, I guess this hand must have accidentally got cut off because of how fragile baby axolotls are.
Dang, that actually sucks. We gotta help this guy, and thankfully, I got just a plan.
You see, I've got these things that when we plop into water, they turn into tons of little bloodworms. worms. These are some of the most nutritious and also delicious foods for a baby axolotl, so I sort of just made it rain bloodworms on this guy, which you can see he absolutely started to devour up. If you didn't know, axolotls are extremely amazing in that they are one of the only animals that have the ability to regenerate limbs when they lose them. And by eating these bloodworms, this guy will now have the nutrients to do that very same thing for his hand.
Yo, for $1, this thing might be my favorite pet. It's so cute. Oh my gosh.
And I would learn, apparently this baby axolotl was even cooler than I thought, and in order to see that, I got out this quite a bit larger tank, and I started to lay down the floor of his new home. Even though our axolotl is so small and just a baby, they grow at a rapid pace, so in only a few months, this whole tank will be getting used up. And for the decorations, literally, we're just gonna use this big piece of wood and a few aquatic plants I had laying around in my garage.
Yep, that's it. We're done. You see, baby axolotls have skin that can scrape super easily, and since ours is already missing a hand, I just wanted to keep ours super simple till he gets a bit bigger. But oh my gosh, he's so cute, and I think he's ready to go inside.
So I let this baby loose into his brand new home. Instantly, he loved it, and you can just see how much he was swimming around and checking out his new enclosure.
Yep, that's one thing about baby axolotls. They're just way more active than adult axolotls usually are. Wait, I have something fun I want to try. What if I put some worms near the axolotl's face? Am I able to make it follow the direction of the worms? Wait, it kind of is.
Yep, I kind of just thought it would be funny to make the axolotl follow my tweezers like it was a fishing lure, basically. And surprisingly, he actually followed it for quite a long time up this log, but eventually he got bored and swam away. But yeah, it was kind of fun to lure him around this tank in random directions, and every now and then I would let him have a big old bite of the worms because he was just so cute to watch eat.
Let me know in the comments what I should name this guy, and if I should make an update video once his hand is healed.
But remember, I'm still gonna show what it's like to keep a $100,000 pet shark, along with so many other price points of fish, next up being $100 pet shrimp.
Yeah, you may be thinking, how does a bag of shrimp cost $100? Well, I don't just have one bag or two bags. I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bags of shrimp, and we're gonna be able to do some crazy time lapses since we have so many shrimp here.
Yeah, apparently keeping an insane amount of shrimp in the same tank is something lots of people into aquariums do because shrimp are some of the best cleaners of all time. And they'll just constantly explore around the tank, eating any dirt or algae that would make the water dirty. These ones in specific are called cherry shrimp because they have a red color in their body like a cherry. Yep, it's a pretty creative name if you ask me.
Now, before we get out a piece of steak to feed to these guys and record on a time lapse, let's work our way up the food scale and start with shrimp pellets, which I bought these thinking they were shrimp food, but on here it says they're actually for fish. So I'm thinking maybe these are just made out of shrimp. They're not actually for shrimp, but I guess we can still try and see if they'll eat it. Let's just start by dropping in one of the pellets.
Now, immediately after dropping this single shrimp pellet in, one of the nearby shrimp basically pounced onto it. Dang, I guess these shrimp like eating shrimp because soon after, another one also came straight onto it. You can kind of see in the zoomed in footage how they use their tiny little mouths to break up this little pellet and eat it. But yeah, over the next couple minutes, this single pellet started to get swarmed by every single shrimp that saw it. Yeah, started to get pretty crowded, but that's what is so cool about having so many shrimp. They just absolutely decimate any piece of food you give them.
Anyways, to feed the shrimp bigger food sources, I've got a way bigger tank. So I think I'm gonna go get some supplies so we can build these guys a nice little home real quick.
So I drove to the store to start shopping. Since we got so many shrimp, I really wanted to spend a ton of time to choose the best decorations for these guys so they could have a beautiful home. And of course, that also meant I had to get some plants.
Okay, as you guys know, I usually get my aquatic plants here at Petco, but today I want to try something different because, oh my gosh, these gotta be getting more expensive. $12 for this, it's literally dead.
So instead, I drove across the town to an aquarium store I had never been to. They of course had tons of cool stuff like this arowana, frogs, and even this massive pleco. But of course, they also had exactly what I was looking for.
Ooh, yeah, this is actually perfect. And it's actually a good deal. I mean, $8 for that big plant in the back.
So yeah, I asked the store employees to bag me up some, and I brought all my supplies home. Since the tank isn't insanely large, it was quite easy to start laying everything down. We start with the aqua soil, which gives the nutrients to the plants, and we cover it in a layer of sand so it won't make the water dirty. Finally, I added around some of the decorations I bought to make this place stand out a bit.
Favorite decoration I bought was a pineapple from SpongeBob, but I unfortunately dropped it as I was getting it out my car, so yeah, it's kind of just in a a bunch of pieces now. But I think I can still fit that in there just like that. I mean, yeah, that looks pretty cool. SpongeBob, it's under the water, makes sense.
Then I added in all those plants I had just bought and filled the thing with water.
All right, there we go. Technically, this water filter at the back isn't needed since the shrimps kind of clean the water themselves, but it's still recommended, which is why I have it. But oh, we do got to get this bad boy inside. It's a light up air stone, which if you don't know what an air stone is, it's this amazing contraption that makes bubbles in the water, and this one lights up, so it's extra special. Oh man, that's actually fire. I'm gonna have to get more of these, I'm not gonna lie.
Anyways, this tank is now finished and ready for all of our little shrimps to go inside. Immediately, you can just see how there is constant movement going on because of the sheer amount of shrimp. Every single little location in this tank had its own little shrimp life being lived.
Now you'll see I left this little open area right here. Well, that's for us to test our next 3 food sources, and our next food source is a carrot. But yeah, they're not just gonna eat a raw carrot. It's too hard for their mouths. They can't chew it up. Instead, we gotta soften up the carrot in some boiling water just like this. And yeah, just let it cook for a couple minutes. And when the carrots are done cooking, we can bring them back to the shrimp.
So I cut off a piece and plopped it straight into the tank. Now this time it was completely different than that shrimp pellet because while a couple of the shrimp sort of checked out the carrot a little bit, ultimately none of them really stayed for long enough to eat it. Come on guys, do you not like vegetables or something?
Oh well, I guess they don't like carrots. But before we try the steak, I want to try one more vegetable. Let's do spinach.
Now with this, I also had to boil it quickly and then I put it in the water as well. And yeah guys, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed by the spinach too, because even though this is so nutritious and Google said the shrimp would eat it, well, they never ate it at all.
Bro, come on. I'm just convinced shrimp don't like eating vegetables at all. Yeah, let's get this trash out of here. And let's move on to our final food source, a entire steak. Well, I shouldn't say the entire steak because that would make the water pretty dirty. So I'm just gonna cut off a little piece just like that. And well, I'm just gonna put this in.
So I put the steak in, and thankfully this time we at least got a bit of action. Because after about 10 minutes, you could tell they certainly weren't swarming it, but there was the occasional shrimp going on to the piece of meat. And it was kind of cool because you could see their microscopic little mouths taking tiny little bites out of the meat. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, for being in here for 2 hours, it was a bit disappointing that they didn't eat this more. I guess with shrimp, you just want to stick to the boring foods like pellets. But remember guys, as you get more expensive, the pet fish get harder to feed and crazier. And well, for the next price point, we've got a $1,000 saltwater coral tank.
Yup, if you didn't know, coral saltwater tanks are some of the most exotic tanks you can get. But the thing is, they get extremely expensive extremely fast. That's why instead, I'm gonna buy this already set up coral tank for $200, and then I can use the rest of the budget to fill it up with way more crazy corals. And dang, look at this video the seller sent me. It already has so much fish and stuff in it. Let's go see if this is legit.
So yeah, I drove out to the cellar and got the tank into my car, although there was definitely something off about it.
As you can see, it's quite a bit dirty, a lot dirtier than it was listed on Facebook.
And I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be fish inside, but I'm not seeing anything. We gotta get this home ASAP.
So I quickly drove home and got it out at my house.
All right, guys, I just got this back to my setup, and look at this. There's actually a fish inside. Yo, there's a clownfish. Do you see that? Yeah, I guess you can't really see it because it's so dirty. But yeah, let me set up all this stuff.
So yeah, I first added in the extra water I had taken out to transport it. Then I put in the heater, a wave maker, a water filter, and of course the lights. And then I let it sit for a couple hours to clear up. And oh my gosh, the whole tank came alive very quickly. You could see the clownfish swimming around next to the anemone, the little shrimp constantly moving around everywhere, and there was even a literal sea urchin. I had no clue this was all going to be included in the tank.
But this place would look way crazier if it had tons of rare glowing corals and stuff. So yeah, we definitely got to go buy some of those.
So I drove back out to the aquarium store where I'd bought those plants from earlier and found out they also had a massive coral section.
Yo, this is sick how some of these corals glow. And look, that clownfish is checking that coral out. And also, bro, $400 for a single piece of coral, that's kind of crazy.
If you didn't know, corals literally have thousands of tiny little animals called polyps that live inside of them. And in order to see them come out, I bought this big bag of coral and brought it home.
Now, corals can be extremely delicate, so it's a good thing we already got this set up tank, otherwise our corals would probably die. But because this is set up, it's as simple as just dumping the water from the bags out and putting all the corals I bought inside.
Then over the next hour, I slowly added water from our current tank into this temporary tray. Yeah, a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it because I started to add these corals around the tank in the places I thought would look best, and I left my camera recording so we could see them come alive. The first one I noticed movement from was this top one that we could see the little tentacles of the polyp animals on here starting to come out. And this green one also started to liven up pretty fast as well. The polyps on these corals use all these little tentacle things to eat up food, which I'll show very soon.
Yo, look at these corals. They're looking sick. The only ones that haven't popped out are these two at the bottom. So I guess I'll just leave them be. And in the meantime, let's feed this tank so we can figure out how alive everything in here actually is.
The fish in tanks like this love stuff called brine shrimp. Basically, you pop one of these frozen cubes in a cup of water and they completely start to thaw out into tons of tiny shrimp that you could put into the tank. Instantly, you could see how all the fish in here, like this blue damselfish, started to gulp up the food. The clownfish was also eating some of it while sticking near this anemone that had come with the tank when I bought it. If you don't know what an anemone is, well, it's actually an animal. And they have thousands of microscopic needles on their tentacles to sting and stay safe from fish. And also, they're able to move around through tanks on their own somehow. But for some reason, clownfish evolved to be immune to the stinging, so they just constantly stay near anemones so no other animals will disturb them. But interestingly, there's also these coral shrimp in here that'll eat the brine shrimp with their tiny little claws, and there's other animals which you don't need to feed, like these cool sea snails which go along the glass eating algae, and these sea urchins which do the same. Pretty cool.
Finally, we can't forget to feed the corals with this stuff, and it's pretty cool to watch. Let me show you.
Yeah, you can kind of just use this thing as a spray bottle under the water to shoot food at the corals. You can see how the little tentacles of the polyps react to the tasty food and close up a bit. The green one was especially cool to watch, along with this smaller green one where you could really see the little tentacle arms grabbing the food and closing it up to consume it. Dang, the ocean is actually so cool.
All right, I just got this set up in my kitchen, and stuff like the anemone is still opening up. But honestly, for $1,000, it's so cool seeing all the different life in here. I'm gonna rate this thing an 8 out of 10.
But there's one type of aquatic pet that's a lot cooler than everything I've showed so far. It's time to show you guys what it's like to have a literal pet shark.
Yes, sir. Now, I could go buy some sort of small baby shark species online and build a small little tank, but that would be boring. I want to see a big, fierce shark.
So I hopped on a plane and flew across the country to this very fish store called Aquatics and Exotics. When I walked inside, I was immediately greeted by some absolutely insane tanks. This one had massive freshwater stingrays. This one had a super cool pig-nosed turtle that had a nose that looks like a pig. But right here at the back of the store is where the insanely massive tank that is filled to the brim with sharks is located.
Yo, these sharks are crazy.
Yup, this tank has 17,000 gallons of water because it contains not only this nurse shark, which like to spend most of their time chilling at the bottom of the tank, but also these two super fierce black tip reef sharks, which are known to be some of the most aggressive sharks in the world. And the craziest thing is how you feed them when they're your pets. So I got introduced to a store employee named Sky so I could show you just that.
You are kind of the one in charge of taking care of all these sharks, right?
Yep, 2 black tips and a nurse shark in here.
Dang, that is so cool. I'm on the mission to kind of find the craziest pet you can keep. Would you say keeping sharks is kind of crazy? Like, is that kind of cool?
It's definitely one up there. Not many people can say they have real sharks in their house.
For sure. But why do you have to have a tank that is so massive for these sharks?
Specifically for the black tips, they are a shark that in the wild requires to be in constant motion to get oxygen through their gills.
Yup, the blacktip reef sharks in specific literally need to constantly be moving in order to get water and therefore oxygen flowing through their gills.
So are these blacktip sharks fully grown?
No, they're still actually young males.
Wow, so they're gonna get a lot bigger than this?
Quite, at least twice
Oh my
the
gosh.
size.
Nah, these sharks are still gonna get twice as big. I can't even imagine what they're gonna eat when they get bigger.
So I'd say I wanna see these guys eat. Can we feed these guys some food?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to see what I'm feeding them today?
Yes, let's do
We
that.
go grab it.
So Sky brought out an absolute buffet.
All right, so what are we gonna be feeding these sharks today?
So that is the light feeding. That's about 2 pounds of shrimp right there.
This is a light feeding. This is like, I couldn't even eat this all if I wanted to. Let's just get this in the tank.
Absolutely. Ready?
Yes.
I even turned on my GoPro and gave it to Sky as she went behind the scenes to feed the sharks all these shrimp. You can see how she started by splashing her hand in the water to alert the sharks that it was feeding time. And then she started to stick my GoPro under the water, which surprisingly, the aggressive black tip sharks instantly found interesting because they kept swimming straight up to it almost like they wanted to swallow it.
Yo, they're trying to eat my GoPro.
But eventually it was feeding time, so Sky started to toss massive handfuls of the shrimp into the tank, which if you couldn't guess, the sharks instantly picked up the scent and they absolutely started to annihilate these shrimp.
Yo, this guy's about to gulp that shrimp up. Oh my gosh. Yo, look at all these shrimp in front of me. Oh, these sharks are just going crazy for them.
But it wasn't only cool to see how the black tips move around to eat the shrimp, because Sky also showed the GoPro how she trained the nurse shark to come to the surface so she could drop pieces of shrimp in so that guy could eat as well. Dang, that is so cool to watch.
Well, Sky, that was probably the coolest feeding of an aquatic pet I've ever seen. This is honestly one of the coolest pets I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Now, I must warn you guys though, this next video is probably my nastiest video ever because, well, I'll just have the video explain. These are mealworms, and they're known for their ability to eat almost anything. But what if you put 10,000 mealworms on a whole watermelon? How quickly would they completely eat it and turn it to mush despite its massive size?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's why I bought 10,000 mealworms.
Yeah, this is the most nastiest thing I've ever done, but it'll also be one of the most satisfying things I'll ever do on the channel.
Okay, well, I got the watermelons right here, but I actually first just kind of want to put this piece of bread in here to see how quickly these mealworms will start to devour it.
So yeah, I put the bread inside, and as you could probably imagine, the mealworms wasted no time to start swarming this thing, and of course, they then started to consume it. If you pay attention to right here in specific, you can see how they just devour a massive hole right through the center of the bread. If they're doing this to the tiny piece of bread, imagine what they do to the full watermelon. Anyways, literally after only 4 hours, this bread was hollowed out with mealworms and just had holes all over it. But this is literally nothing compared to the other time lapses I'll be showing off in the video. I have tons of stuff planned, ending with the final 10,000 mealworms versus the whole watermelon. But don't think the stuff before is boring, because we're gonna be starting with leeches.
Yup, you heard that right. For the first time lapse I'll be recording, I went and bought 5 big leeches.
Yup, leeches usually live in the wild and grab onto unsuspecting prey to basically just suck the blood out of them. Well, since I have 5 of these leeches and they're in captivity, it's gonna allow me to get some insane time-lapse footage of them sucking the life out of a food object as the leeches get bigger. It should be pretty cool. And if you watch my video about keeping pet leeches, you'd know they basically like to spend all their time under the water, so that's why I'll be setting up an aquarium for this test.
And then quickly, I'm just gonna fill up this tank with this so I can go ahead and put the leeches inside so we can get this test started.
So yeah, I put each of these 5 leashes inside and I put a lid on top so they didn't escape. And immediately you can kind of just see how they all just start swimming around under the water, just sort of like how snakes do. Yeah, it's kind of weird honestly, but once they want to stop swimming, they'll go up to the glass and just grab onto it using the end of their bodies basically as a suction cup. It's actually pretty cool. Anyways, for the food I'll be feeding these guys, it's this piece of beef liver.
Well, alright, why don't we just drop this slimy nastiness into here and see how long it takes for these leeches to get absolutely massive.
And so step 1 was to actually get the leeches to bite onto this piece of meat, which is pretty easy. You basically just pick up the piece of meat with tweezers and start bringing it up to the leeches' faces until they grab onto it. So yeah, I just went around and picked up all the leeches onto the meats. But if you couldn't tell, the water quality got super bad because of the beef liver, so I decided to actually let the leeches eat the beef liver out of the water, since in the wild, that's actually how they prefer to feast. And while a couple of the leeches kind of detached from the piece of meat and started to run away, 3 of the leeches actually did stay on it, so I could watch as they started to eat. You can literally see them contract their throats in and out as they basically use their teeth to grind the meat up, and then they suck it up like a smoothie up into their bodies. But things actually did not go to plan, because out of nowhere, this leech decided to detach from the piece of meat, and then he just started to slither away randomly. Then the other 2 leeches decided to detach too, and this guy decided to just burrow into the piece of meat, and this one just slithered away. Hey, at least we got to watch him eat for a little bit, but this is why I love time lapses. You just capture random interesting stuff like this. But even these leeches are nowhere near as interesting as the time lapse coming up later, because the time lapses get cooler as the video progresses. So that's why for our second time lapse, we're gonna be recording flesh-eating beetles.
Yes, you heard that right. Flesh-eating beetles. And they're called that because they're beetles that eat flesh. And well, let me show you why that is so cool.
Now, as you can see, there's some actual flesh-eating beetles in here, but most of the things in here are still in their larva stage, which means they're actually even more hungry than usual. And you see, these insects are cool because they can literally just eat the flesh off of animals to the point where they only leave the skeleton bones behind. So yeah, I'm gonna try and record a time lapse of that.
And I've got thousands of flesh-eating beetles in here to the point if I put my finger in there, it would probably turn into a skeleton. Actually, you know what? I wonder what would happen if I put a piece of dog food in there. Hey, I guess let me get a quick time lapse real quick.
So I put the dog food in, and if you were wondering, it didn't take them very long for them to start swarming this piece of dog food. You see, these are dog treats that I buy for my dog Jet, and they're made out of the top quality real beef ingredients, which of course Jet loves, but that also explains why these flesh-eating beetle larvae were also loving it. Anyways, it was pretty crazy how after just a few of these beetles latched onto the dog food, pretty much all of the beetles soon followed behind until literally this piece of dog food was literally like just not a piece of dog food anymore. This is just a living piece of flesh-eating beetle at this point. Yeah, there's just so many on here.
Oh my gosh, bro, what? These guys are so hungry.
So yeah, I shook them all off because if you remember, the main reason I got these beetles is because I actually want to see if they could turn an animal into a skeleton by just eating its flesh. And I don't want them to get filled up on this, but anyways, considering this piece of dog food was only in there for like 10 minutes, the beetles made a pretty decent amount of progress by chewing a bunch of tiny little chunks out of it.
Anyways, for the main course I'm feeding these guys, I've got a duck head. Yeah, and we're gonna see if they can turn it into a white duck skull. But yeah, don't worry guys, I didn't do this to the duck. I actually just bought this at the pet store. Apparently they're dog food. Jack, can you give this a taste test? You think the flesh-eating beetles, you think they're gonna like it? Yeah, he's licking it. I think he likes it.
So since it passes the Jet taste test, I wasted no time to put this into our tank. Let's see what these bugs do. Now, immediately things were pretty interesting because many of the beetles, of course, were drawn to this nasty duck head, and pretty much all of the beetles started to gather at the base of the head. These guys were all slowly chewing away at the fur of this duck head, and it was cool because you could gradually see the group of flesh-eating beetles move up along the side of the duck head, and they were even eating it so much that they ended up knocking it over. Eventually, it was so nasty because the beetles had just completely swarmed the head and were crawling in and out different parts of it, like the hole in the beak. And after leaving this in here for a full 24 hours, you can just see how much they chewed through all the fur and just how nasty this is. But the real damage was done on the bottom of the skull where it was completely chewed through. These are the literal bones of the duck skull, and this is just straight up so disgusting. This looks like a zombie duck head at this point.
Oh my gosh, this smells so bad, you guys don't even know. But dang, check this out. I'm actually kind of surprised this didn't just like turn a completely white skull kind of color, because I know these beetles sometimes do that, but I guess it makes sense. This is just kind of dog food, but I would call it a success. I mean, look at how destroyed this thing is. Anyways, so these guys will definitely make a very interesting addition to my pet collection.
Alrighty, we're almost at the final 10,000 mealworms versus watermelon test, but quickly, I'm excited to show you guys time lapse number 3, which is an alien creature digging.
Yup, you know how some people set up their ant colonies in 2D ant nests to get footage of them digging out those tunnels along the glass? Well, this alien creature is actually able to do the same exact thing. Let me show you how.
Yeah, so this thing's called a vinegaroon, and it's the same one from a few videos ago on my channel. But you see, I call them an alien because, I mean, just look at them. They look extremely weird, and they have these claws at the front of their body that actually allow them to dig.
Yup, and for this guy, as you can see, I filled this tank up with a bunch of clay. But if you look, I actually left a hole on the side of the glass empty. That way, when I go and fill this place up with dirt, the vinegaroon won't be able to make a hole anywhere in this dirt other than that hole I made in the clay right on the side of the glass there.
Now, anyways, after getting the dirt in, I wasted no time to put the vinegaroon inside. Now, immediately, this alien creature wasn't exactly super interested in digging. He was kind of just trying to climb out. But you see, that's because there's actually a few things I have to set up in here to make this guy want to dig quickly. First of all, I put this water dish in here, and then I started to use my finger to dig out a little tunnel under the water dish. Now, when the vinegar vinegaroon comes over here, he'll find the little entrance to the burrow I made, and when he's ready to dig, he'll know where to start. So guys, I just went and set up my time-lapse camera in another room so we could observe what these creatures do when no one's watching. And yeah, during the first few hours, since it was technically still day, you can see he was very active amongst the top section, still trying to escape. But the second it hit nighttime, this dude went down to the burrow section and he started to dig up like a straight up drill. Nah, let's see that on an instant replay. That's actually pretty cool. You can literally see the pile of dirt up here grow as the vinegaroon digs out all the dirt from the tunnel. I think this is some of the clearest footage ever caught of these creatures digging. It's pretty cool to watch. Well, dang, now that this guy dug this tunnel, you're probably wondering why they actually make these tunnels. Well, they actually make them to hunt. And well, I got a cricket right in here. Let's drop this thing in. And so after I dropped the cricket in, he started to walk around the top area, but little did he know the vinegaroon was right under his feet, waiting in the burrow for food to walk in. And a little bit later, the cricket did just that. He started squeezing through the opening that was dug out the night before, and he went in deep enough to where the vinegaroon was sitting. I know it got super foggy in here when I brought it to my recording area, so it's kind of hard to see, but the vinegaroon started to attack the cricket, and he started to chase him out the burrow. The cricket tried to escape, but it was no use because the claws of the vinegaroon are just too strong. And I know you guys can't really see it well in this footage, but I can assure you the cricket is no longer with us, to put it lightly. Dang, that was cool. But I'm gonna go and move this guy back to his original enclosure I built in the original video. Well guys, it's finally time to do our final time lapses with the 10,000 mealworms. Okay, I'm not gonna waste any time, and I'm gonna record some stuff right away. But before we do the watermelon, I actually want to start with something a lot more interesting. This thing. Yeah, this is literally a piece of styrofoam. And you're probably wondering right now, what the heck, TerraGreen? Why are you feeding this to the worms? Well, it's because mealworms have an absolutely insane special ability, and it's actually that they can somehow digest styrofoam. Yeah, talk about the latest special ability ever, but I just had to get a time up showing this off, and immediately these dudes started to completely climb all over the styrofoam, completely covering it. I don't know why mealworms are one of the only animals that can eat styrofoam. It's honestly kind of weird, and the craziest part about this time lapse is if you look right down here, you can literally see the moment when the mealworms decided to start chewing a massive hole through the side of the styrofoam, so they could literally crawl inside to eat more. It's super cool. And anyways, after leaving the styrofoam in here all night, I shook off all the mealworms so we could see the damage that was done, and holy, look at this thing. First of all, that hole the mealworms shoot through the side is nasty, and it's still filled to the brim with worms. Ugh. Then just this whole top part has bite marks all over it, and this thing is probably hollowed out and just filled with worms. Nah. And yeah, if you're wondering about the other pieces of styrofoam, basically the exact same thing happened to them, and they got obliterated. It's safe to say these mealworms are hungry. Now, I think it's about time we get out the watermelon so we can do the final time lapse, and I got a knife here so I can go and cut this thing up so we can reveal the nice juicy red part. So yeah, that's exactly what I did, and I just put the watermelon straight into this tank so we could get this test started right away. Now you already know the mealworms started to, of course, climb all over the watermelons right away. Mealworms love watermelons because, of course, they're super sugary and sweet, but they're also made out of 92% water, meaning the mealworms can just get super hydrated. Now it's so crazy because you can see how nice and bright red this watermelon is now. Well, it only took a couple hours until that bright red completely started to fade as thousands of mealworms started to climb all over the watermelon, nibbling tiny little pieces out of it. And yeah, this all happened in the time span of only 12 hours. Yeah, I literally just left this overnight. Okay, I just checked on this for the first time since waking up, and first of all, this smells absolutely disgusting. But look at this. This was a bright red color like 10 hours ago, but it's like completely rotting because of what these mealworms are doing to it. This is nasty, and they're making all these tiny little holes in it. Nah. Anyways, I moved the tank to the floor to continue the rest of the time lapse. But as you can see in this footage, as I continued recording, the mealworms weren't nearly as interested in the watermelon. Pretty much none of them were even eating it anymore. I mean, it does look pretty rotten, to be honest, so I guess it would make sense to why they don't want to eat it. But yeah, I decided to just stop the time lapse since they weren't eating it anymore, and I came back 24 hours later so I could see the full results of what the watermelon looked like. What the heck? This is so nasty. Is that mold growing on the watermelons? Oh my gosh. But actually, to my surprise, when I took a look under the watermelons, there was massive holes chewed through the green shell part. And like this watermelon here had so much chewed through this part. So yeah, I guess the mealworms really really were eating the watermelon, but I guess it just wasn't showing up on the time lapse because it was happening under where we could see it. Dang, that's actually insane that they could eat so much. Yeah, sorry if you were eating while watching that video. Now, this next pet I kept is probably one of my favorites because of how unique they are. Watch this video to learn about them. This is 1,000 termites, and in this video, I'll be testing everything interesting about termites, even putting them against a mini wood house to see if they'll eat straight through it.
Yeah, should be fun. Now, before we get to the house, I first want to show you guys how termites build their nests, because termites seriously build some of the craziest homes in the animal kingdom. And they build them quickly. Let me show you by dumping these guys in.
Now, instantly after dumping in the termites, you can see just how many there actually was here, just absolutely swarming in this single area. But you could quickly see how multiple started to gather up in this back area near the exposed dirt. You see, I've set up this container to have a thin layer of soil pressed up against this glass floor. And this gap here lets termites squeeze underneath to start digging, meaning we're gonna get to see them dig their intricate tunnels from above. It's a slow process that only works because of the sheer amount of termites, because while a single termite is super small, there are over 1,000 termites right here, meaning work gets done pretty quickly. And over the next 3 hours, the bulk of the termites migrated across the entire floor in this super cool pattern. Dang, that is insane to watch on a time lapse.
Oh my gosh, these termites completely dug this entire area out so much faster than how long it usually takes for my ants to do it. And thankfully, this video is just getting started because the next fun thing I have planned for the termites is to put a predator with them. And by a predator, I mean I've got this tiny little earthworm that, to be honest, who knows? When it digs under with the termites, what's gonna happen? I mean, they could swarm it, they could just completely evacuate the place, I don't know.
So the only way to find out was to put this little worm inside. Now, almost instantly, it squeezed under the glass floor and started to dig in the dirt as it got closer to the termites. Now, I'm pretty sure termites only eat stuff like wood, so honestly, I didn't even think much would happen, but as the worm got nearer, some of the termites started to approach the worm with the little tunnels they had dug out and didn't initially attack it. In fact, they sort of just ignored that it was even there, just walking from one side of it to the other, acting like it was just some sort of bridge. But then all of a sudden, I noticed tons more of the termites starting to gather around the backside of the worm, almost like they were gonna start attacking it. Even some of these bigger termites marched in called soldiers that specifically have these massive mandibles meant to defend the termite nest. But as I kept watching, surprisingly the swarm didn't attack and, well, they kind of just let the worm dig around their nest.
Dang, this is so interesting. How the termites are just fine living with a literal worm in their nest. Yeah, they're just not attacking it at all.
Even more interestingly, as I left my time-lapse camera recording, the worm really just learned to coexist with the 1,000 termites. Yeah, I mean, this honestly makes sense. This species of termites literally only eats wood, so there's no reason for them to waste their energy attacking a harmless worm.
Dang, that's cool. Well, I'm guessing you guys are hungry, so for our next test, we're gonna feed these guys some wood. Hopefully, they like it.
But yeah, I don't only have this nice natural piece of bark from a tree, I also have this piece of cardboard. So that way I can test both of these materials to see which is the best food source to feed these guys in the future. And after sliding both of the food sources under the sheet of acrylic, the termites had access to them. And honestly, it didn't take long till some of the termites started to investigate it. Since putting the termites in this nest, they've had like a day with no wood, so I knew for sure they would be hungry. Now, interestingly, there was almost like no termites going up to the actual piece of wood, but there was quite a few checking out the piece of cardboard, even walking inside the tiny holes on the side of it. You see, termites like this species actually have more than 100,000 microscopic little alive creatures inside their bodies. They're called flagellates, and basically they live inside termite bodies, and as the termite chews wood, these flagellates help to digest the wood and break it up into actual nutrients somehow. But yeah, it's just insane knowing each termite body is basically just a massive house to so many of these unseeable creatures. Now, even though some of the termites were walking inside the cardboard, it didn't actually seem like they were eating either of these food sources yet. Well, that was until this, because I kept my time-lapse camera recording, totally just expecting the termites not to move towards the wood. You can see most of the termites were actually staying near the bottom, away from the wood. But as I kept recording for another half an hour, eventually a couple termites started to walk on top of the piece of bark. And they looked pretty excited, because soon after, a few more termites started to walk onto it. I guess they didn't realize this was food earlier, but since they had now found out, these initial termites that had walked on here started to release a type of special pheromone in the air that signals there was food here. Because the whole colony could sense the pheromones, it literally only took about 5 more minutes until this piece of wood started to get absolutely swarmed. Yeah, it happened so fast, and soon enough, the entire piece of bark was covered from top to bottom in termites. termites. But interestingly, it seemed like this piece of cardboard wasn't getting nearly as much attention from the termites anymore.
Yo, check out this wood. It's getting absolutely swarmed right now. And it may look like the cardboard's not getting eaten, but if you actually look very closely in there, oh yeah, this thing's getting eaten up too.
Yup, that's right, because when I pointed my camera directly to the side of this cardboard, you could tell it was overflowing with termites. It looked like they were just crawling all up inside of it, and when I got some tweezers to peel back the piece of cardboard, well, you could see just how many there actually was inside, which kind of all immediately evacuated once they realized I was peeling this apart, so sorry guys.
Oh my gosh, it's only been an hour and these termites are decimating the wood. Imagine what they're gonna do to the mini wood house when I leave it in there for a week.
And after shaking off all the termites I could, you could see this piece of wood looked quite a bit different, and it looked like it may have even been hollowed out because there's just a bunch of termites walking inside. Anyways, for the final test before feeding them a wooden house, well, I want to put my termites through a maze.
Yep, termites, I'm gonna be testing your intelligence, and if you actually make it to the end of the maze, I'll reward you with the house.
To make this termite maze, I got out an empty fish tank and I started to cut these lines of plastic to make the shape of a maze. After going and gluing them down, I completely filled the floor up with another thin layer of dirt. If you remember, the termites dug through that first nest I made for them in a cool pattern, so I'm wondering if they're gonna do the same here and if they're gonna take any wrong turns that lead them to a dead end.
All right, then let me go and just put this perfectly sized piece of glass here, and then let me put a piece of bark and cardboard at the end so they'll actually have a goal to get to. Well, let me gather up these termites and I'll move them in here.
And yeah, it was actually quite a bit harder than I thought to move these termites out because how incredibly small they are. So I sort of just resorted to digging up all the dirt I could that the termites were hiding under. I even found that worm that I'd placed in earlier, which is still just living peacefully inside. But yeah, eventually I got all the termites into this little container with dirt.
All right, now I just gotta dump these in here so they can start the maze. Also, what's kind of cool is if you look at the underside of this, all the termites have just started to gather there. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, anyways, I went and started to scoop the dirt into the maze enclosure pretty carefully in order to not hurt the termites. You can see this whole pile of dirt was just absolutely overflowing with tons of termites. But basically, you remember how the termites were just gathering on the bottom of the little container they were just in? The plan here is they're gonna do the same thing and they'll slowly make their way into the maze. Hopefully. Yeah, I don't actually know if this is gonna work. But I set up my time-lapse camera and waited to see what would happen. After not too long, this termite was the first to enter the maze, but somehow he decided to crawl into the walls of the maze, and he sort of started to break through to the other side of the wall. Now, thankfully, this was a dead end, so when the rest of the colony decided to follow this cheating termite, they didn't finish too easily. Over the next few hours, you can really see how the termites learned to follow each other because so many of them ended up at this little tunnel at the top left area, but it was only a matter of time until more of the colony started to go down into the maze, and over the next day, they started to travel closer and closer to the wood end goal. I mean, they still kind of were cheating, but eventually one termite did actually make it to the wood. And yeah, I guess just like that, they had completed the maze. Good job, termites.
Well, since you guys made it to the end of this awesome maze, that of course means you guys get to eat the house now. Let me gather you guys out of here real quick and let's do that.
Yeah, it took a little while, but eventually I got them into another container.
And yeah, you can see how they're all pretty much just gathering up on the bottom once again. Oh my gosh, there's actually so many right there. But anyways, I got the house right here, so let me just, and boom, just like that, the house teleports inside. There's totally no editing involved in that. That was just magic.
Now, I first drilled a hole into the top of this house that I'd eventually be able to record through. Then I also added a bit of dirt around and inside of the house so the termites would want to stay here. And finally, termites need constant moisture to survive. So I'm just gonna absolutely drench this house with my spray bottle. Hopefully this will make it easier to chew through.
All right, termites, I hope you're still hungry. Yeah, I guess let me just try and take this sheet of termites and just start dumping them in the house. And then there's still tons in here, so I'm just gonna go and dump them inside and kind of just all around the house. Let's get this thing absolutely destroyed. Well, hopefully. I don't actually know if they're gonna eat it, but that's the plan.
Now, it's pretty cool to see the sheer amount of termites just swarming every single inch of this house. And you could even see them inside a little bit, but I couldn't see that much since it was kind of dark. So I, of course, set up the time-lapse camera and recorded for many hours. And you could see there was tons of termites that were just walking around the perimeter of the tank investigating what was going on, while others were still swarming around the dirt of the house and also climbing all up inside the hole that I drilled on the top of the roof. But there was no destruction really visible just yet.
Okay, it's been about 24 hours and it almost seems like the termites are doing nothing to this house. But you see, the thing that makes termites so deadly to houses is the fact that they completely work out of sight. So let's do a little more investigating on this thing.
So I pointed my super bright studio light through that hole I put in the top, and you could see the termites were in here, but yeah, it was still not super visible inside of here. So I went and pointed the camera through that hole in the roof, and I was even more amazed by the amount of termites all huddling around the wooden walls. You can even see how some of them would rapidly shake their heads. Apparently they do this to signal to the rest of the colony that danger's nearby, but yeah, you can see the walls were starting to look like they were maybe getting a little bit destroyed so far.
Yo, the termites are absolutely swarming inside of there. Hold on, wait, I wonder if they're under. Oh my gosh. That's more than I was expecting. Oh my gosh, there's even more on the underside of that.
Yeah, tons were gathering right here, as you can see. I wasn't really sure if these ones were actually eating the wood or if they were here for just cover. Either way, I kept recording my time-lapse camera, and while nothing really interesting happened on the outside, as you could probably guess, when I moved the time-lapse camera inside to start to record, you could see how there was so much more action and how they were climbing all over this wall. Surely they were eating it, but if you didn't know, termites are some of the slowest eaters in the animal kingdom, and even with over 1,000 in this 10-hour time lapse, you can't really see a whole lot of damage being made, but you can see some of these termites were making this cool little mud ball out of dirt, saliva, and wood that they spit out. They sometimes will make these little balls in their nest to keep moisture, since, as I said earlier, they need moisture to survive. Alright, we're nearing the end of this compilation, and I've saved my craziest videos for last. And in this next one, I went to the Costa Rican jungles to find the craziest animals of my career. Check this out. Exotic jungles are home to some of the craziest and rarest animals ever. So that's why I'm traveling to the Costa Rican jungles to flip 100 objects to find insane ant colonies, deadly creatures, and so much more. And the trail I'm on in specific gets denser as you go on, so I'm going to be finding crazy animals by the end. But to my surprise, under literally my first rock flip, I found something really good.
Oh, I've never found one of these in the wild, yo.
Yup, this is a vinegaroon, an insane, almost alien-looking creature that can literally shoot acid out the end of its abdomen. And thankfully, there happened to be a wild cricket right next to it. So of course, I took out some tweezers, I grabbed the cricket, and almost instantly, the vinegaroon snapped its claws at the cricket, and well, it instantly started to devour it. Dang, that is pretty brutal. As I continued a bit more into the jungle, I ended up checking under and around these leaves when I found this insanely camouflaged bug. This is a katydid, and when you take a close look at its body, it literally has the same exact vein texture that leaves have. And yes, they use this insane camouflage to surprise attack other bugs and eat them alive. Yeah, the jungle is home to some of the craziest camouflage ever. But unfortunately, under object number 3, there wasn't anything. So from now on, I'm only gonna show stuff that actually has cool animals. It only took until object number 5 when I was searching under these leaves and found this. I had just caught this baby assassin bug in the middle of attacking an ant. Yes, if you can't tell by the name, assassin bugs are known for how deadly they are with their venomous proboscis mouths that they use to inject venom into their prey. And scarily enough, they sometimes will gather the corpses of their insect prey and carry them on their backs to use as a body shield. Yeah, sorry ant, you might have met a brutal end. And interestingly, literally only about 30 seconds away, I think I found where this ant had come from. Going through the middle of the trail was a massive line of one of the most iconic ant species. These are leafcutter ants. Yep, you probably have heard about these guys before. They have mandibles that act like scissors so they can cut little pieces of leaves off to bring back to the colony. If you look closely, you can even see that there are some of these way bigger leafcutter ants, which are the majors. These guys will help carry the bigger and heavier leaves and will also help defend the normal workers from predators trying to attack. It's pretty cool. Anyways, as I continued on the trail, I ended up flipping object number 10, where I found a pretty weird creature. At first, all I could see was this really small white and blue bug, but as I picked it up onto a leaf to get a better look, I realized that this was a butterfly. Yeah, you probably know how butterflies start out as caterpillars, and once they get big enough, they turn into a chrysalis for a few months until they finally emerge as a butterfly. But this butterfly I had found must have just emerged from its chrysalis because its wings were all curled up. So I decided to leave it be, so over the next few hours, it could develop those beautiful patterns on its expanding wings. As I continued down the rainforest trail, I found object 15, which was this tree, and on the side of it was an insane amount of flies.
Yo, I don't know if this shows up on the camera, but there was like 2,000 bugs right in front of me.
Yeah, I was honestly a bit confused on what exact type of bugs these were and why there were so many in one area. So I of course got out the backpack, and this time I grabbed out a GoPro on a stick. This lets me safely get a close view of what was going on in here, and to my surprise, these weren't actually flies. In fact, with their yellowish color and shape, it made me think it was some sort of species of stingless bee. And what sealed the deal is when I got my GoPro closer to the side of the tree, I saw this weird entrance tunnel sticking out with a bunch of bugs flying around. Apparently, some species of stingless bees construct these super weird funnels on the side of trees that act as the entrance to the hidden hives inside the trees where they keep all their valuable stuff like honey. It is crazy what lives inside some of these jungles. As I continued down the trail, I found some of these massive leaves. But what was interesting is how some of them had been absolutely decimated and completely tore up, like this one that you could barely even tell was a leaf. Some super hungry caterpillar or leafcutter ants must have come through and done this, and my suspicion was confirmed because less than a minute down the trail, I found another line of leafcutter ants, but this time they were gathering up an insanely massive pile of cut up leaves, probably from those leaves I was just at. And as I followed the line of them even more, it brought me to where their nest was. You see, leafcutter ants don't actually cut up leaves to eat them. They actually bring the leaves all the way under their nests, chew them up meticulously, and spit them back out. And over a few days, a special kind of fungus grows on the chewed up leaves that the leafcutters will then eat. So in a way, leafcutter ants basically run a massive farming operation in their nests that no one would ever suspect. But the most interesting thing I found here was this line of the leafcutter ants bringing pieces of dirt to the nest to build it even bigger. But right next to all these workers, I noticed something super insane. There was a massive queen leafcutter ant being carried by a ton of royal escort ants. And based off the fact that this queen had its wings still, it told me that these royal escort ants were taking her to a safe place for her to take flight, so that way she could find some male leafcutter ants to mate with, so then she could tear off the wings to start her very own colony. Now, the next creature I found was actually the closest call I've had to getting hurt so far, because under this leaf, I had found an absolute Goliath of a caterpillar. Unlike normal caterpillars that have smooth skin, this thing was completely covered in these soft, fuzzy white hairs. And as you can see, it had this super creepy red skin underneath. Now, I got extremely lucky that I didn't accidentally touch this thing, because I later learned that this is a flannel moth caterpillar. And under all of this white fuzzy fur is thousands of microscopic venomous needles. Yes, and whenever you touch one of these caterpillars, it'll eject those needles into your skin, causing immense pain that doesn't go away for days. Phew, I dodged a bullet for sure. By this point in the jungle, I had gotten to a little section with a small river running through it, so of course I had to get out the backpack to once again grab out my GoPro from it. Since GoPros are waterproof, it lets me stick it under the water to see what kind of life is living in here. First of all, if you look very closely, you can see there is some super small water beetles which go around eating algae to keep the water clean. Then there was also some of these tadpoles I had found, which of course will turn into frogs sometime within a month. And also, once I had stick my GoPro into the deeper part of the river, I was able to find a decent amount of fish swimming around. They move fast, so it's sort of hard to see, but if we pause at the perfect time, you can sort of make out a few of them. One of them was down here sticking to the rock, which made me think it was some sort of freshwater goby or pleco species, which both have the ability to suction the bottom of their body to rocks and rivers, so then the water won't push them around and they can just chill near the bottom. Now, just right next to where the river was, I was flipping a few rocks and ended up finding something pretty gruesome. There was a straight up pile of bones from some animal. Yeah, I'm not kidding, and these must have been pretty fresh because the tendons and tissues were still connecting these bones to a bunch of feathers. This was almost certainly a Costa Rican bird, maybe something like a hawk or an escaped farm chicken that unfortunately was attacked by a crazy puma or some other deadly predator. Nah, there is something dangerous around here. Okay, I gotta keep my eye out. And speaking of crazy jungle creatures, well, as I was walking down this little stretch of road, I ended up finding a vulture menacingly sitting on a pole. Yeah, vultures are the scavengers of the animal kingdom and sit still to use their insane eyesight to locate animal corpses. It will then swoop down on them and absolutely decimate whatever food is left. But it's just so creepy to me how these things have completely feathered bodies, but then they just have these bald heads that they use to stick inside the rotting corpses. Very brutal once again. And continuing on the theme of brutal finds, the next thing I found was actually what I thought was a dead spider. Yeah, I found this spider that was completely limp, and if you take a close look at it, it had a thread of silk connecting it to the leaf above. This led me to believe that it must have gone into some sort of crazy fight with another creature, and unfortunately had lost. But after thinking about it for a bit longer, it actually made more sense that this was a spider molt. Yeah, if you didn't know, every few months, some spider species will literally basically crawl out of their old skin like an Alien movie once they've outgrown it, and it can sometimes just look like they've left a body behind, but in reality, the spider is still living happily in the forest. So hopefully we'll see some moving ones soon. Anyways, the next creature I found was actually something pretty funny, because as I was walking along the trail, I noticed a little white and green thing moving along the floor. But quickly, I realized that this was another one of those leaf cutter ants. But this dude happened to be carrying a little plant stem that was like 5 times longer than its body, and he was having a lot of trouble trying to move it since it was a lot bigger than him. It was funny because I could literally just pick up this ant by the plant stem, and I figured I should just help him out, so I moved him a bit in the direction he was headed in.
All right, just wanted to move you a little closer to your target, buddy.
Now you see, by this point, I had spent so long on the trail that the sun was starting to set, meaning it was now night. This means I'm not even gonna have to flip rocks to find stuff anymore, since all the crazy nocturnal animals are just gonna be out and about since it is nighttime. And that was instantly proven because along the very first tree I checked, I saw this. It's a bark mantis, which of course is a praying mantis that are known for how deadly they are to other insects. But yeah, it just has the texture of bark so it can camouflage a bit better. But very interestingly, this is the perfect display of how this camouflage is needed, because right above this mantis was a yellow-headed gecko. Now, big mantises are known to take down and eat lizards. This mantis was certainly too small to do that. Right now, the only thing keeping this mantis alive from being eaten is its camouflage. And speaking of mantises, as I continued down the trail, the next cool creature I found was another mantis. Yep, but this was a much more iconic species. It's a tropical shield mantis.
Bro, this is so cool how much this guy camouflages. I mean, his back literally looks exactly like a leaf.
Yep, this is probably some of the most impressive camouflage, because while their body stands out a lot to potential predators, well, they have these massive leaf shields on their back so that when they're turned away, you basically cannot even tell that they're there. Oh yeah, and did I mention that these things have wings? I don't know why everything I find is so cool. But little did I know, I was just getting started, because only a few minutes later, as I was scanning around some of the branches in this tree, I noticed what almost looked like some sort of moving vine. But in fact, this was actually my very first snake find of the trip. We can tell based off how extremely thin its body is and the shape of its head that this is a blunt-headed tree snake. These things are honestly cute with their massive eyes, and also they don't attack humans. They just slither through the branches looking for stuff to eat, like these frog eggs I had found earlier. But yeah, they're honestly nothing compared to some of the snakes I'll be finding later into the night. Now, my luck must have been insane during this night, because the very next creature I found was just chilling on the side of some stairs on the trail. It was a tailless whip scorpion. If you're a fan of my channel, you may already know these things since I've had them in videos before. But what was so insane about this guy is that it had something in its claws that it was eating. After zooming in a ton, I got a close look to see that there was some sort of stinger in its grasp. This could only mean one thing. So I took out the backpack, and from inside I grabbed out a UV light. If you didn't know, certain animals like scorpions glow under UV light, and when I shined my UV light at this tailless whip scorpion, the very thing it was eating of course started to glow. That meant that the stinger it was holding was actually the stinger of a baby scorpion, and this tailless whip scorpion had somehow caught it and was devouring it up. Oh my gosh, I had no clue these things ate scorpions. That is so cool. Now, the next interesting animal I came across in the night was actually this big nest on the side of a tree. After getting a closer look, I realized that this was a black crazy ant nest. These guys are called crazy ants because, well, when I touched their nest to simulate a threat of danger, you could tell how they absolutely started to swarm that area super fast like a bunch of crazy people, even though there wasn't actually a real threat there. But don't let their small size fool you. They're known for taking down prey way bigger than themselves with teamwork. By this point in the trail, I had gotten to this small little abandoned pool area that I noticed had tons of tadpoles swimming around inside of it. But very interestingly, right on top of this cloth cover above the pool, I had found the most iconic frog in the world, the red-eyed tree frog. Yes, these guys can actually be quite rare to find in the wild since they only lay their eggs in still bodies of water. So you won't find them nearby flowing rivers or creeks, so it sort of makes sense that we found them near this abandoned pool, and it's likely that the rest of these tadpoles in here will also turn into these amazing frogs one day. Now, the next couple finds all rapid fire. First of all, there's this little katydid bug that had caught a roach and was eating it alive. Then there's this super tiny stick insect on a leaf. That, of course, looks like a stick for camouflage. Nice. Right after, I found this way bigger stick insect of a slightly different species hanging onto a branch. You could tell this one was a winged stick insect based off its thicker body shape. And also, when I got my hand close enough, it all of a sudden flashed its bright orange wings at me like a flashbang and flew away. Dang, these things actually look like a bird when they fly away with their wings. That's pretty cool. I was seriously finding so much camouflage stuff in the jungle this night, like this thing. It may just look like an ordinary ordinary lizard at first, but it's actually a helmeted iguana. Not only do they have this sick head shape that just sort of looks like a chameleon's head shape, but they also have the ability to change the color of their skin just like a chameleon. Yep, you see how this one has a green body to match the leaf it's on? Well, only a few minutes later, as I was scanning through the branches nearby, I found another one of these iguanas that this time was brown, even though it too was hanging onto a green object, so I don't know why it chose to be brown. It's kind of a bad color to choose, but anyways, still pretty cool, and yes, they actually do change your color. Now, by this point in the trail, I was dead set on finding one of the many deadly venomous snakes that Costa Rica is filled with. So I passed up literally every boring little bug or even spider that I found to keep searching. And by some stroke of luck, right at the end of the trail, I came across this small dirty pond. After looking around it, there of course was a snake. I couldn't tell what exact species it was at first though, so after putting a zoom attachment up to my camera, it let me see that this was a fer-de-lance pit viper, the most dangerous snake in all of Costa Rica. It was a good thing that this thing was on the opposite side of the pond from me, because they have these massive hollow fangs that if you're unlucky enough to get bit by, inject a potent venom into you. And yeah, this dude was just staring directly at me. This is the perfect reminder of why you gotta be so careful recording these videos. Anyways, I was pretty much at the end of the trail by this point, and the final two animals I found, thankfully, were pretty cool. Because first of all, there's this giant fishing spider floating on the water. These guys will wait for fish to swim under them and then swim under the water to attack them. It's pretty crazy. But even cooler than that was this massive sleeping basilisk lizard sitting on a branch above the water. You see, these guys have a special name in Costa Rica. They're called the Jesus Christ lizard. Because like Jesus Christ, who can walk on water, these lizards can do the same exact thing when they're in a life or death scenario. Their feet are designed in a special way to repel water, and when they move extremely fast, they can kind of just defy the laws of physics and yeah, literally just walk in the water. But of course, since this guy was sleeping, I didn't want to disturb him, so I just left him be. Bang, that was cool. But now it's time for my favorite ant video I have ever made, where the ants did some of the craziest stuff they ever have. So check it out. Ants are known for being some of the smartest insects to walk the earth. So I was wondering, if I put my 1,000 ants up against custom challenges, could they complete them, or would they simply fail?
Well, I don't know. So that's why I gathered up my 1,000 ant colony and have prepared 4 brand new ant obstacles that have never been seen before on YouTube.
The first of which is a custom ant nest, which I'm going to be releasing my colony into. Now this is going to be interesting, because while there's this whole top area for the ants to explore around, there's also this 2D ant nest on the side of the glass that the ants can dig tunnels out all around. But lurking under this 2D nest is an insect lair filled with tons of crickets, which the ants are gonna have to dig into, and we'll see whether they attack the crickets or whether the crickets go crazy running through all the tunnels. I have no clue.
Ants, I know you want the crickets. You best start digging.
And thankfully, I didn't have to wait long, because this species of ant is literally hardwired to want to dig. Yes, sir. They started to turn into little excavating machines, and within only a couple hours, so much progress was made, and the ants were getting dangerously close to the insect cave. I know this side of the glass is slightly dirty, so it's a little hard to see, but if you look closely, you can see how single ants will pick up individual grains of sand, walk all the way to the surface to drop them off, and yeah, then they just repeat that process. Anyways, it was starting to get quite late for me, so I decided to go to sleep, and when I came back in the morning, I was amazed by what I saw.
Okay guys, I just woke up and take a look at this ant colony. I did not expect them to dig all of this out overnight. But wait, are they down here? I don't think so. It looks like the crickets are fine. Wait, hold on though. That means the ants above could literally dig into the crickets any second now. Oh my gosh, bro. Wait, I gotta set up my camera.
Yup, the ants and crickets were minutes away from encountering each other. The only thing in the way was this thin layer of paper towel that the ants will have to chew through. And of course, it didn't take very long until I noticed the first ants that had started to make it through. If you look closely, it seems like they had successfully chewed a hole through, and workers were slowly starting to squeeze inside.
Wait, yo. There's ants down here. Hold on, they literally just broke down. Oh, ooh, things are about to get interesting.
Yup, the ants were starting to infiltrate the cricket lair. Now, this ant species needs to hunt live insects in order to make sure the whole colony can be fed protein, so I was not very surprised when I noticed the ants started to gather up to form an army on the right side and slowly started to move towards the crickets, until they got distracted by this jelly cricket food, which they decided to take a break and eat.
Yo, ants, no way. You are just eating that jelly stuff. Wait, do you realize that there's crickets all in here? Are you guys gonna attack them or are you just gonna eat the jelly?
But it wasn't long until one ant decided to go rogue. It started to run into the crickets, completely driving them crazy, which set off a chain reaction of the crickets, then walking into the ants, which just made everyone angry. This cricket started to get swarmed by a few of the ants, and we could see how they completely pinned it down and started to annihilate it. Yep, it's very brutal, but you just gotta keep in mind, this is how nature works, and ants need to do this. And the fact that the colony had started to infiltrate this lair shows that they meant business in taking down these crickets.
These ants are eating good tonight. Not only are they still sucking up this honey stuff, they're also eating the crickets. But yeah, I guess I'll just keep time-lapsing this to see if anything interesting happens over the next day.
And yeah, as you could probably guess, over time, more and more ants swarmed this little area and eventually took out pretty much all of the crickets. I also just find it interesting how over time, ants can do so much stuff and basically completely redug out their tunnels to be concealed from the light.
Bro, it is so cool what the ants have done to this little lair down here. Since you guys passed the optical, you get rewarded with a bunch of food like oats and carrots, it looks like. Hopefully you guys enjoy.
And while these ants eat this food, it's time to prepare their next challenge, archer fish.
Yes, sir. My 1,000 ants are going to have to survive the archer fish bridge of doom.
If you don't know what an archer fish is, well, it's this insane fish that can sit at the water surface waiting for a bug to crawl on a branch above, then they strike. They have these insane mouths that can spit beams of water to knock insects directly into the water where they are then gulped up. And in this case, the ant colony is going to have to make it across this bridge while avoiding the water streams getting shot at them from the fish below. Should be fun.
All right, ants, it's time to start the challenge. Let's just connect this tube in here and all the ants have access. Oh, and if you're wondering like where all the 1,000 ants went, they're basically all in the dirt area and the area where the crickets were, and over here breaking down into the area where they're not supposed to go at all. Yeah, pretty much all the ants are right here. So if the ants complete this obstacle, I'm gonna give them a new nest.
But for now, the ants wasted no time to start sending their first exploring workers into the archer fish bridge. Now, initially, the ants weren't actually going to the bridge. They were mostly gathering over by this corner away from it. Guys, do you know you have an obstacle to complete? But eventually, some of our ants finally started to check out the edge of the platform, where, of course, right below, their predators were waiting. Almost every single one of these archer fish were staring upwards directly in the direction of these ants, waiting for the perfect moment to shoot their stream of water. And only a few minutes later, these unlucky ants happened to be our first victims. Out of nowhere, water splashes started to get unleashed on these ants. Some of them even got directly hit and flung backwards quite a far ways away. But yeah, guess the ants weren't really realizing exactly what was happening because they kept gathering up on this edge, where eventually one ant got directly hit straight off into the water.
Oh, guys, do you see what is happening? I'm sitting at my desk very far away from this, so it's very blurry footage. But bro, they are eating up the ants right now. Oh my gosh.
Now, normally I wouldn't want to let my ants get harmed in these kinds of videos, but in this case, it makes sense because ants make up the main diet of archer fish in the wild, and it's interesting to see how the archer fish will take a couple attempts to swallow the ant to ensure it won't be able to sting or bite anymore, and then they can get their protein. But eventually, some of our ants finally started to realize the point of the challenge and started to walk on the string, which especially it has to be risky walking upside down like this since the archer fish could shoot at any point. Thankfully, at this exact moment, none were below this little ant, so he and another ant were able to make it all the way to this first leaf.
Oh, check this out, guys. The ants have made it to checkpoint 1, and they still kind of have a long way to go, but, I mean, at least they're making progress.
But not every ant was so lucky. Many were still getting shot in and even falling off the bridge themselves. Some were getting eaten up, but most were actually getting left by themselves in the water. And only a few minutes later, I noticed something amazing. The ants that were floating on the water were coming together to grab onto each other's bodies with their legs to essentially create a mini raft. Now, massive ant colonies are known to do this in the wild to survive floods and keep all the valuable stuff like eggs on the top.
Yo, look at this. Oh my gosh, there is so many ants right there. And they're literally making a boat out of their bodies. Wait, is it cheating if I save these guys? Because I feel like if there's any ants that deserve to be saved, it's these guys. They're working so hard. And look at that. I can just pick them up. Oh my gosh, it's kind of satisfying actually.
And yeah, don't worry, ants surprisingly can sit on water for a decent amount of time and still make a full recovery as long as they get out. So these ants should be a-okay. Anyways, by this point, many of the ants were actually starting to make it surprisingly far on this bridge, like this ant that made a dash to the second leaf, which now all you had to do was walk this short length of string to get to the finish line. And that's exactly what he did, risking his life knowing he could get shot down at any second. And he got so close until he decided to completely turn around and completely kind of just started to go the wrong way.
Bro, I swear, this ant has got to have like 1 IQ. He was just at the finish line. He's just... What? Okay, I'm not even gonna question it, bro. Let's just keep waiting for another ant.
But as I kept recording, eventually this same ant decided to go back towards the finish line, doing the whole bridge again. Thankfully, he didn't get shot off and made it back to where he had turned around earlier. Surely this time you got this, ant.
No way this guy makes the same mistake. Wait, hold on. He's almost there. Bro, please, literally just climb up onto the platform. I'm telling you. You are so lucky there's not an archer fish right under you right now.
Yes, this ant really did take a sweet time, and for a second, I thought he was about to turn around again, but eventually this happened.
Oh yes, this ant just completed the obstacle. And not only did you just win yourself a bunch of oats, but you just won the rest of your colony a bunch of oats. Okay, wait, hold on. Hopefully I didn't drop those too hard and accidentally crush one of the ants, but no, I think they're good. Let's move these guys back and rebuild their nest like I promised.
So I moved the ants back, put the archer fish back in their proper home, and completely tore apart their nest so I could construct them a new one.
Well, ants, it's time to say hello to your new nest. Let's dump all you guys in. And of course, good job for passing the last ant obstacle. Here is your food reward from that. But ants, if you want even more prizes, well, you're going to have to complete the next ant obstacle, which is the ultimate ant gauntlet.
Yes, sir, and the ants happen to already be standing in the exact enclosure where this challenge will be taking place. You see, the ants are gonna have to walk into this place that says start and go through 4 different rooms to eventually get to the massive food prize at the end. And they'll even be able to turn all these rooms into a nice temporary nest for now.
All right, ants, so are you ready to begin? Well, I'm just gonna pull this out and let the challenge begin.
And yep, the ants wasted no time to start swarming into this first room. Now you see, to progress to room number 2, the ants are going to have to chew through this hole of honeycomb. Yes, I literally bought a brick of honeycomb from a beehive, which was very expensive, and cut a little square off of it for these ants to chew through. Of course, because honey tastes super sugary, the ants wasted no time to absolutely start surrounding it.
Oh my gosh, the ants are swarming this first room. I legit can't even tell if they're making progress chewing through the honey right now. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
But yeah, based off the sheer amount of movement, surely progress was being made in here. But what was so interesting is somehow ants were actually already starting to get into the second room of the obstacle, even though they hadn't finished chewing through the first room of the honeycomb. Yeah, I don't know how some of the ants got here. I guess maybe they squeezed through some crack in the wall. But yeah, that kind of just goes to show how ants just kind of do whatever they want. Now, anyways, at this point, it was getting super late, and so I decided to go to sleep while I left my cameras recording. And what I caught was kind of funny, but also kind of sad, because while these ants literally never finished chewing through this honey all night, ants were making it even deeper into the obstacle. Yeah, this is the third room that had tons of flies in it that the ants were gonna have to attack, but somehow a couple workers already somehow made it inside. Some of them were attacking the flies, like this guy that was just walking around with one of them in his mouth, but amazingly, the ants also started to dig into room 4. This final room was filled with dirt, and the couple workers that were in here actually started to dig through it by themselves. And even more interestingly, if you look over here, the ants were chewing through the roof of this final room and actually completely just dug in and completely dug all the way through the entire thing until they had made it to the ending with all of the food prize.
Yo, these ants are cheaters. You're telling me I went to sleep and they did not even chew through this first room of the honey, but somehow there's ants in the middle room and there's lots of ants at the dirt, where they literally left most of the flies alone and just decided to dig through all the dirt. I guess good job, ants. You completed the obstacle, and I should probably stop building my obstacles out of this paper stuff that they just kind of chew through. probably my fault.
This, of course, means the ants get to move on to their final challenge of the video, the spider web of doom. Yes, sir, this final tank that is filled with this weird stringy web stuff is the final obstacle. And the ants are gonna have to start at the bottom and somehow climb up these super thin strings to eventually make it to this platform with their prize on the top.
And ants, don't think this challenge is easy because halfway through, I'll be adding in a jumping spider to defend the prize at the end, and we'll see if it actually eats any of the ants by jumping on them. And well, I just spent the last hour picking up a bunch of the ants from here, but they should be ready to go into our final obstacle. And wait a second, who put this amazing spider plushie right here? Who put this amazing Pac-Man frog plushie here? Well, it was me, because we just launched 2 brand new TerraPals plushies.
Yes, sir, you guys love the Venombra and Axie TerraPals so much, we decided to make a Velora the spider, which is not only super cute, has the TerraGreen logo, but we also wanted to put some Velcro on its feet so you could connect them.
And this lets you wrap it around tons of different stuff like a real spider. And we've also released a Gumbo, the Pac-Man frog, which is easily our biggest plushie yet. And it's just so cute and has such a cool design. Oh my gosh. Yeah, as of today, you guys can now get these 2 brand new TerraPals. For now, I already know these ants are dying to get into this obstacle. Let's get them inside.
Now, I started by pouring in just a few of these ants so we could see how they initially react to this weird stringy web everywhere. And well, it seemed like the ants were pretty intrigued. Many of them weren't climbing the string right away. Many were actually staying pretty still at the bottom. You see, I made this tank by getting a hot glue gun, which before it dries, you can stretch these super thin strings of glue. So I basically just shot this glue stuff everywhere and let it dry to make the strings. So this means they are extremely thin, and the ants probably didn't even realize that it was something that they could climb at first.
All right, since no ants have climbed up yet, all that means is we need to increase our chances of it happening. So let me just carefully dump the rest of these guys in, and yeah, hopefully you guys can complete the obstacle.
But interestingly, while I was dumping in these ants, a few of them actually landed on the weird stringy spiderweb structure, and it was cool to see how they very carefully traversed it, trying their best not to fall off. But apparently these ants didn't realize there was an amazing prize waiting for them at the end, because many of them just kind of started to climb downwards in the complete opposite direction they were supposed to go. Yeah, that is not what you guys are supposed to do. And yeah, while most of the ants were still not climbing at all, just kind of staying near the bottom, every now and then we would get a few brave ant scouts that would keep exploring through this dense web structure. And over time, some were actually getting surprisingly close to the end.
Dang, these ants might actually be able to complete this obstacle. But of course, I'm not gonna let that happen until I get to feed my jumping spider.
Yes, sir, I literally just went out and bought a new pet jumping spider for this obstacle because of how small it is. Yeah, usually jumping spiders are actually decently sized, but this one is basically a microscopic baby that is the perfect size to hunt some ants. So I went ahead and carefully let them loose at the end.
All right, jumping spider, you best be very careful to not fall into all of these ants. But for now, let's see if you can take down some of these ants.
Now, initially, the jumping spider was just chilling on the strawberries, but eventually I noticed him starting to walk around different parts of the tank, and eventually it even stepped onto the spiderweb string structure, where, of course, there were some ants not too far away. And thankfully, I wasn't gonna have to wait too long for some action, because this ant right here started to advance closer and closer to the spider. And interestingly, the spider didn't attack right away. It actually just stared at the ant as it slowly walked by. And yeah, the ant was getting extremely close to the finish line when the spider decided it wanted to start following the ant. But unfortunately, the spider was too slow, because the ant eventually made it fully to the finish line, where the spider then decided to take a nap under the money.
Oh, this ant is so lucky, because literally look right next to him. The spider was stalking him while he tried to make it to the platform, but thankfully you were able to do it, little buddy.
Yeah, I guess the spider wasn't hungry right now, or maybe he's too smart and knows these ants are some of the strongest insects in the world.
Well, ants, you've completed the final obstacle, so you don't only get strawberries, but you get your $10,000 reward of totally real money. That's definitely not fake. Let me move you guys back to your proper nest. Guys, if you are listening to me talking right now, it means you just watched this whole compilation, and seriously, that means you are one of my biggest fans, basically in the entire world, because you just watched me for like 2 hours. So I just want to say thank you, and I guess I'll just promote my plushies. We just dropped these 2 brand new amazing plushies. There's a massive Pac-Man frog. It's very cute. And we got a spider that literally has Velcro on its feet. So you can connect them together and make the spider climb like a real spider. Yeah, I'm basically just trying to make the coolest animal plushies in the world. So if this would interest you, basically go to my merch website, and that's where they are sold. But yeah, seriously, thank you guys so much for being a massive fan, and I guess I'm just gonna go now because I gotta go work on another video probably. So bye.